good friends just made a podcast. Two good friends just made a podcast. Two good friends just made a podcast. It's called Culture Bucket. Two good friends just made a podcast. Two good friends just made a podcast. Two good friends just made a podcast. Culture Bucket. Georgia and Alex.
Hi, welcome back to Culture Bucket, the world's greatest pop culture podcast, your favourite pop culture podcast, my favourite podcast. Welcome to episode 59, almost 60 episodes in, almost halfway to 100, that big 120. How exciting.
Sorry,
today,
120.
Yeah, it's a big number, 120.
Yeah, but we have to get to 100 first.
Yeah, but 120 is bigger than 100. It's a bigger number.
That was so random, though.
When you do your times tables in school, you don't stop at 10, you stop at 12, don't you? So 10 in primary school, the biggest number you learn is 120.
Is it?
Yeah, because you do 10 12s, so that's 120, and then you stop. You don't do your 13s times tables.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Did you not do your times tables in primary school?
Yeah,
in elementary school.
Yeah, but why 12? 12 is such a random number.
Well, no, because I guess once you get to because I guess I didn't want to go into the I don't know. You did up to 10, and then you did 11 and 12 just to be safe.
Oh, what?
Why did you just go up to 10?
Yeah. No?
Maybe you're in the remedial class.
We don't have those in Italy. In Italy, they all considered everybody the same. There's no remedial class.
It's all the remedial class.
I was in the back of the class. Huh? What is happening?
Speaking of that, Belfast is out this week in the UK. Go and see that. No, because it's actually came out like two weeks ago. Go and see it. There's a sequence in the movie about the position that people sit in the classroom being important. So well done, Alex, for bringing that up.
Oh, really? Why is that important?
Well, I don't want to spoil the movie too much because it's a really fun scene. But the idea is that the students because it's set in like 1969 when education was different, the students that perform the best in their weekly tests get to sit up front where the teacher sits, and the students that perform the worst have to sit at the back.
That is so awful, isn't it? It should be totally the other way around.
Yeah, absolutely, it should be the other way around, but it's not. But they have fun with it in the Belfast movie. It's a good. There's a really funny. There's probably my favourite moment in cinema this year will be involving that idea.
I really want to watch
Belfast. It's such a good film. But we're not here today to talk about Belfast. And also, I haven't even told you who would. It's me, George, speaking now. If you don't know, and Alex is the other voice you can hear. Hi, Alex.
Hi, George. Hi, everyone. How are you doing, George, today on this fine winter's day?
Very good, thank you. This fine winter's morning. Yeah, it's not bad. It's a bit chilly, but other than that, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm great. I'm very excited about today. I've been wanting to talk to you about this film for a long time. Because
what film's that?
I can't talk to anyone here about it, and you're my only friend, so.
Fair.
Yeah, and I can't wait. It's going to be very spoilery today, so if you haven't seen Spider-Man, do not listen to this episode.
If you have seen Spider-Man, don't listen to this episode.
If you haven't seen Spider-Man.
No, if you've only seen Spider-Man, don't listen to this episode.
Sorry.
But if you've seen Spider-Man
No Way Home.
No Way Home, please sit down.
Yeah.
Put your feet up. Yeah. Relax. You know everything that's we're gonna talk about. No spoilers for you.
No.
If you've only seen 2002's Spider-Man, starring Toby Maguire, directed by Sam Raimi. No, I'm just being a big jerko because it's funny.
You are a jerk! In fact, today's going to be your love letter to Spider-Man. I'm just going to sit back and listen to you.
Yeah, it's exciting times. Yeah, so first we're going to do a culture catch-up, mini little highlights of our week, culture catch-up.
Yeah.
Then, after that, full-on spoilers for all of Spider-Man No Way Home. For every little tiny element of it is going to be discussed, so get yourself in a safe place if you don't want to be spoiled. So, that's what we're doing today. We're talking about Spider-Man No Way Home. The best movie of 2021.
This is culture catch-up time. This is where we talk about what we've watched, what we've read, what we've listened to, and probably some other stuff. Culture catch-up time.
Well, this week, my highlights of this week have been a couple of albums and a TV series. So finally, maybe it's like 3 albums, 2 of them recommended by you. Cool. I finally did my homework. I apologize. I completely forgot. I've always been bad with homework. The Christmas holidays there was a lot of wine involved and a lot of sleeping, and I completely forgot. But fine. I finally listened to the album that you gave me a few months ago, probably. The album by Esteem, Prioritise, Pleasure.
Yes, Prioritise Pleasure by Self-Esteem.
OMG. Why didn't you push me to listen to it every day?
I did. I gave it as your homework.
I know, but every day. Have you listened to it, Alex? Have you listened to it, Alex? I should have had message after message after message. How have I not listened to it before? This is such a great album. It's so good.
Yeah, I know.
So good.
Yeah, I know it is. Yeah, it was like my second favourite of last year or something.
Why didn't you push it?
It was in my top 10 albums of the year. I gave it you for homework. I don't know what else I could do.
You should test me every day. And I was listening to it. I was like, this is good. This is so good. I was not expecting that at all.
No, you don't expect it. Because you think that an album that good should be the only thing anyone is talking about. Yeah. But somehow it's not.
Yeah. So I was like, it's another thing of George that he likes, and I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it, but it's not going to be. But it's so good. I listened to it like just now because it's so good. And I'm so excited about it, and I want to listen to it all the time. When did you give me this as homework? A while ago, didn't you?
Oh, like probably November, I think.
It's Prioritise Pleasure is a solo female artist, isn't she? She's not a band.
Yeah, she used to be in a band called what were they called? Slow Club or something? Slow Readers Club. She was in like an indie band, and then she went solo, and became Self-Esteem.
Yeah,
which is sort of a band, but it's not really a band. It's her.
But it does feel like a collective, though. It doesn't feel like she's a solo artist. It feels like a collective of people. I don't know if it's...
Well, it's a weird thing. Like when you look her up on Wikipedia, the first line says like Self-Esteem is an experimental pop project consisting solely of musician Rebecca Lucy Taylor. So it's kind of just her, but I think she does like it's a collaborative effort with various people she works with. And yes, Slow Club was the band she used to be in.
But it's so good. It's amazing. If you haven't listened to it and you didn't listen to it after George said it, listen to it. And I can't believe you didn't text me every day. Listen to this album, Alex. Listen to it because it's so good.
Yeah, I know it's so good. My favourite song is the second song, which has got a swear word in the name, so I'm not going to say it, but it's the best song.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I really enjoyed it. So that's one of the albums I listened to this week. And then I listened to another album that you told me to listen to, which is the Weeknd's album, Dawn.
Oh, Dawn FM.
Dawn FM. I have a funny story about that. I put it on, and it started with the tale of Quincy.
Oh, that's not the first.
That's
song.
not the right way to start. But I put it on the car. I leave my house at 6:15 in the morning, and well, first of all, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth studio album, so it's been quite prolific since 2013. not
Yeah.
bad.
He's done a lot.
And so I left my house after you recommended this album to me in the morning, put it on, and then it started with The Tale of Quincy Jones, which I think is in the middle. And for some reason, my Spotify that morning just decided to be random. So it played like 4 songs and then went back to that's the same song. And so I was like, is this, because it's called Dawn FM, it's like, is this supposed to be like a radio? And they put the songs on repeat. It was very confusing 40 minutes because I listened to a few songs over and over again. I was like, oh, is this like a... And I wasn't enjoying it, but because I'm driving and I've got a long drive, I couldn't like stop it. So it was just like this 40 minutes of this constant song. Then I listened to it again and I really enjoyed this album. It's good. It's a good listen. It's a bit different. It's got, of course, elements of the Weeknd, but I think it's an interesting album.
I really like it a lot. And it's cool. It reminds me of the Queens of the Stone Age album, Songs for the Deaf. Do you remember that album? Because that has like the concept of that album is that you're driving through the desert and hearing snippets of radio stations as you move in and out of different frequencies. So Josh Homme put in sort of little snippets of various sort of desert rock radio station DJs, or facsimiles of those. This album is meant to be the concept is to do with the idea that you are in purgatory, awaiting entry into heaven or whatever. Which is why the album cover is an aged up photograph in prosthetics of is it called Abel Tesfaye, the Weeknd, the titular Weeknd anyway. And you can he's in darkness and he looks really old, and you can just see on his shoulder, on his left shoulder, a little glint of light, which I think is meant to be the light at the end of the tunnel sort of thing. And he's always pictured purgatory as being like stuck in a tunnel in Los Angeles traffic. So that's sort of why he's kind of ended up with this idea of a radio station where the DJ is Jim Carrey. Ah,
interesting. But the DJ where?
Yeah,
I didn't realize what I didn't in the video.
No, on the album itself, the first song, and then about halfway through the album, and then on the last song, Jim Carrey comes in and does a little sort of radio DJ bit. Did you listen to this album, Alex?
I did. A lot. But I told you, like, the first time I listened to it was constant 5 songs, and then Santa, I heard you were married. Yeah, I have listened to it. What are you talking about?
What am I talking about? The last song says Phantom Regret by Jim.
I don't read the titles because I listen to music. I'm not you. I don't read titles. I didn't realize it was... I don't know. I just listen to the music.
Anyway, he said musically it's very inspired by 80s synth bands like Depeche Mode. Yeah, which is a vibe and a style that I enjoy a lot. So yeah, I think it's a great album. I'm glad you listened to it.
There's a lot of that kind of the Depeche Mode kind of like, also the accent, how he does it sometimes go oh. It's changed. He's changed his voice a little bit. It's less high. It's getting a little bit more like lower. Yeah, it's changed
definitely
quite a bit. Yeah,
it's definitely a good companion album to After Hours. I think they both go well together as sort of a pair of albums that have been around during these lockdown times.
Yeah, I definitely I appreciate him more the more the evolution.
Oh yeah, when I've tried to go back pre-After Hours, I've never quite understood.
No.
I don't know. I don't quite get his music pre-After Hours, but his last 2 albums I've really, really enjoyed. So good for him. What was the third album you listened to?
The third album, I think because I listened to this album, Spotify recommended me FK Twigs' new venture.
Is that a mixtape or something?
Yeah, it's mixtape, but I don't understand why it's a mixtape. Like, there's no tape involved.
These days, does it basically come down to like record label? Like if you've got a deal with a record label to do free studio albums, if you want to put something out that's not part of that deal, or your record label doesn't want it to be one of the free studio albums, you can say it's a mixtape. I don't know.
Ah, okay. Well, because like there are 17 songs in this mixtape, so it's long.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've never listened to FK Twigs. Unfortunately the only thing I know her for is from her, personal life, her relationships with Robert Pattinson and uh Shia
Shia the
LaBeouf.
Beef.
Shia
Yeah.
LaBeouf. And I'm quite glad that I'm very glad Spotify recommended me Caprisong because it's a really good, interesting concept of and what is a mixtape, but it's kind of experimental but also poppy. It's apparently it's like the most mainstream thing she's ever done, but I really enjoyed it. I think she's really good, and the reason why Spotify recommended me that after listening to The Weeknd is because there's a song with The Weeknd, Tears in the Club. Tears in the Club. So yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's good. It's fun. It's interesting. It's quite personal, and I really liked it. So if you fancy, I think you should give it a listen, George and listeners.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried her last album, Magdalene. I tried listening to, and well, actually, similar to the album you gave me for homework, which was Skin by Joy Crooks.
Yeah.
I can appreciate on both counts how good it is, but not necessarily for me.
Yeah.
I think I've come, and I don't know actually if FKA Twigs is in this genre, but I think Joy Crooks is. I've come to the realization that sort of what is described as neo soul music isn't entirely my thing, but that's fine. Not everything's for everyone.
No, I think you might enjoy this one more. I think there's
That's
more
cool.
like
I'll give it a try. I'll give it a try. I do want to like FKA Twigs.
Yeah, and she's good and talented, and yeah, it's good. And then the last thing, another highlight of my week is a TV series. Is the last and final season 5 of Insecure has come out. So if you have HBO Max, Sky, Now TV, I think you can watch it, and it's a series I've talked about before, but it's a series created by Issa Rae and Larry Wilmore, and it's based in LA, where the main character Issa Rae, she's called Issa, played by Issa Rae. Yeah, the main character Issa Rae, kind of navigates her life through LA, and love and jobs, and it's great. And the 5th season arrived later because of COVID and other things that Issa Rae was doing, but the last season is, you can feel it's the last season, and it's kind of it feels like a little homage and little postcards and love letters to LA and LA's black culture and LA's food culture and LA music culture. It's just it's a good ending, although I'm sad because I'm always sad when I know I can't watch these characters anymore, because you know after 5 seasons you kind of fall in love with them. It was a good ending of the 5 seasons, and I think and you see the characters more, because in other season you didn't see some of the actors for like a couple of episodes, but in this they're kind of trying to like, they're together a lot, and it's really fun. So if you haven't watched Insecure, I recommend it, and the 5th season I think is great, and a great way to finish a great series. But yeah, I'm sad. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and there's the moment, when you see the end of a season, and, when you watch Friends and they're actually crying at the end after 10 years. And I've seen a few seasons recently, and there is, they're not. There's not always like the love at the end of the last episode. But in this season, there's a moment between Molly and Issa, which are like best friend, and they cry, and they're actually crying, and they're just like hugging, and because it's the last episode, and it's just like so emotional, and that there was only love in this series, and it's just really nice to kind of see that they had a real actual connection, because they were talking to each other like, oh, you're my best friend, and I think they actually meant that, and it's really lovely.
That's nice.
No.
Issa Rae, incidentally, in connection to today's episode, is going to be a voice in the what's it called, Into the Spider-Verse sequel.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, she's going to be the voice of Spider-Woman, Jessica Drew.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I love Issa Rae. She's so fun, so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, I've not really seen much from her, but I'm excited for her to be in Spider-Man and stuff,
Yeah.
and she seems like she's pretty good. So yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
So my culture catch-up then.
Yeah.
Cool. So I've watched one film this week and a little bit of a TV show. And I think that's about all I've really got to talk about. So I'll just go for it. Do you remember before Christmas I showed you a trailer for a cartoon that made you sad and scared?
Oh, yeah, The House.
Yeah.
The only reason I remember is because Netflix keeps reminding me to watch it. Like, I don't want to watch it.
Oh, really?
No, thank you very much.
Maybe you shouldn't. The House is a British stop-motion adult animated anthology movie. It tells 3 different stories, all set in a house, which I think is sort of the same house, but it's in a different place in each story, so it's not quite clear. It also doesn't really matter because they're very different stories. Each one is directed by a different group. So one's directed by Emma de Swaif and Mark James Rolls. One of the stories is directed by Nikki Lindroth von Bar, and one of the stories is directed by Paloma Beza. It features a huge voice cast. It's got people like Mia Goth's in it, Matthew Good, Mark Heap, Miranda Richardson, Dizzy Rascal pops up for a moment.
Oh.
Paul Kay's in there, and most excitingly, Jarvis Cocker is in it quite a lot. It's the singer from the popular Britpop band Pulp. It sort of came out of nowhere. They put out a trailer in December, and it was coming out in January. And the trailer kind of was all the things I like in a movie. It looked weird. It looked creepy. It was stop motion animation, all sort of felt characters. And I immediately was like, this looks like my kind of thing. And then when it came out on the 14th of January, I excitedly watched it, and it was my kind of thing. I absolutely loved it. The first story in the anthology is the one that particularly upset you when I showed you the trailer, where it's the human characters who have these big, round, sort of moon faces with tiny, tiny, beady little eyes and mouths in the middle. And in this tale, it sort of centres on this young girl called Mabel, who's got a new little baby sister, and she lives kind of out in the middle of the countryside with her mum and dad. And they're struggling to make ends meet, and it sort of seems like it's sort of Victorian era times. And the dad stumbles out drunk in the middle of the night one night, not sure how to keep his family, together or keep them in food and stuff. And a mysterious stranger appears in the middle of nowhere and offers him a deal, which is that this mysterious stranger is going to build a big house on a hill, and he's going to let this guy's family live in it rent-free with food for free as long as they continue to live in the house. And the dad accepts the offer. They move into the house, and very quickly, strange and unexplainable events start to occur. And you follow mostly, you see the mum and the dad become infatuated with the house, and then you follow the little girl who doesn't seem to fall under the house's spell as she tries to understand what's happening to her parents. And it is pretty weird and upsetting and creepy, and I loved it. It was very, very good. And then suddenly the second story, that first story, by the way, is called And Heard Within, A Lie Is Spun. The second story is called Then Lost Is Truth That Can't Be Won. And that one, suddenly, the house is now in the middle of a city, on a street, say in London, in modern-day Britain, and it's empty, and you follow a rat who doesn't have a name. He's just sort of a developer, and this is the guy that's voiced by Jarvis Cocker. And you watch him renovate the house with the intention of flipping it. Basically, he's a house flipper, so he's going to renovate this house and flip it to try and make some money. And I guess the main thrust of it is that very, very quickly early on, he spots a bug and he realizes there's a horrific bug infestation in the house. And he goes to battle with the bugs, but it sort of takes turns that you couldn't anticipate from that, and it is really weird and creepy and bizarre. It's got this old couple turn up and tell him they're interested in the house, and then refuse to leave, and he can't quite get them out. But then you find out there's a revelation about him that kind of reframes what you think's happening, and it's a pretty good little story. And then the third tale, is now set in the future. So I guess the first tale's in the past, second tale's in present day, third tale's in the future, and it is now, the house is now on its own again. So this third tale is called Listen Again and Seek the Sun, and it's set in the future. In as much as the house is now on its own, sort of in the middle of a vast apocalyptic lake. And it is now lived in by 3 cats. One of the cats owns it and is the landlady, and is constantly trying to get the rent from the other 2 cats. Who and that story is it kind of makes sense at the end of the movie because it's much more mellow. It's not very creepy or scary in any way. It's just it's just a little bit sad because it's sort of, she's going up to them and talking about renovating this house and being like, I'm going to make this house much nicer and much better, and you need to stop paying me rent so I can afford to do that. And then one of the cats will say to her, like, but it's going to get flooded. We're in the middle of a lake. And she'll just sort of go, so I need the rent off you so I can improve the house. And then it's all about her not really wanting to notice what's happening in the outside world and just focusing on her house and stuff. And it's got a kind of quite a melancholy tone to it, which is an appropriate way to end a movie like this. So those are sort of the 3 tales. You got your humans, your rats, your mice. Your humans, your rats, your cats. Standard sort of anthology style.
Yeah.
It's just really the atmosphere it strikes, the tone it strikes, the quality of the animation. Considering it's got 3 different sets of directors, I guess it must be the same animation studio doing it, because the art style changes, the kind of, who the characters are change species for each story, but the quality of the animation itself is maintained as, a really high level. And I really, really, really liked it. It was exactly my kind of thing, and I would recommend that people check it out. And it's not a full-on horror movie. It's odd and strange and creepy and unsettling, but it's not violent or jumpy or, any of those things. So I'd recommend people check it out. I really enjoyed The House. Other than that, I have watched 2 episodes of a new horror show on Netflix. The House is available on Netflix as well, by the way. Called Archive 81. Have you heard of it?
No.
So it's a new show. It's executive produced by James Wan, who made Malignant, which I've talked about a lot and liked, and Aquaman, made the Aquaman movies, and Insidious and the Conjuring films. So kind of horror credentials there. A couple of the episodes in the series are directed by Benson and Moorhead, who are a directing team who are always described in like any marketing you see as like visionary directors, Benson and Moorhead. And they are pretty amazing. They've made a movie. They made a couple of movies. They made a film called Spring, which I adore, a film called The Endless, which is a masterpiece, and a film called Resolution, which is very good, and then a film called Synchronic, which is fine. But I really, really like them. So that made me want to check out Archive 81. I've watched the first 2 episodes, and it follows a man who works in a museum in New York City. And his job is that he's an archivist. He restores old, damaged videotapes in order to archive them in the museum's files, etc. And he is contacted, he's called Dan, he's contacted fairly early on by a mysterious sort of businessman who runs a company of which there is no kind of clear record of what they do, who offers him, I think it's $100,000 to go to their research facility in the middle of nowhere and attempt to restore a set of videotapes that have been recovered from a building that burned down in New York in 1994. And from that point on, it kind of moves between his attempt to understand why he's been asked to do this job and what's going on. And then when he restores these videotapes, you see what was happening in the apartment building. So it moves between these two timelines and follows Dan in the present day and a character called Melody in the 1994 scenes, and you sort of see what she was encountering, and there's things that link both timelines together, and there's twists and turns. Even in the first two episodes I've seen, there's plenty of sort of twists and turns and mysterious things going on. And I've only watched 2 episodes, but it starts off really strong, and it seems like it's doing well on Netflix, but it also maybe is in danger of sort of being lost in the New Year shuffle. So I'd recommend people check it out. It's a cool, if you like sort of mystery horror stuff, say X-Files or Twin Peaks, etc. It seems like quite a fun one of those. So yeah, give Archive 81 a go. And other than that, I've not got much to report on because I've decided that I want to rewatch, because I'm in Marvel fever at the moment because of how much I like Spider-Man No Way Home. I've decided to rewatch all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies again from the start, some of which I've only ever seen once and a lot of which I've not seen in years and years. So far I've watched Iron Man 1, The Incredible Hulk, and Iron Man 2, and and Thor actually, which I need to log on my letterboxd because it's not there, and Thor. So I'm 4 movies in.
I want to do that as well. I think it'd be good.
It's pretty great because for years I've been like, Iron Man 1 is it's sort of started everything off, but they've improved on it a lot since and stuff. Watching Iron Man 1 again, it's so good. It's such a good film. It's got such fun action scenes in it. Robert Downey Jr. is on fire, and Jeff Bridges is one of the best villains I've ever done. He's Obadiah Stane. He kind of loses it when he kind of goes insane in the final 20 minutes, and it doesn't really make sense. Like whatever he's got this plan all the way through where he's going to quietly get rid of Tony Stark and become the ruler of Stark Industries, etc. And then he gets found out, and then sort of just goes mad and makes a big giant robot suit and fights Tony Stark. But it's like, if you win this fight, you're still eventually going to get arrested and captured, etc. Everyone knows now what you've done, that you've hired people to assassinate Tony and stuff. You're not going to suddenly be able to kill him and then be in charge of Stark Industries. So a weird ending to that movie, but other than that, it's pretty imperfect. The Incredible Hulk and Iron Man 2 is, I think, better than people say, but not amazing. And I like
The
Thor.
Incredible Hulk, is that the one with Ed Norton?
Yes, it is. Eddie Nortz. Yeah. It's fine. It almost doesn't feel like a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, but it technically is. Robert Downey Jr. is in it at the end, and they've brought back William Hurt and Tim Roth since, so it's technically within the continuity, but it really doesn't feel like it. It's an odd one.
I liked the first Thor. What did you think about the first Thor? I think it's okay.
I liked it. I've always thought it was pretty fine, and when I watched it this time, I thought it was pretty fine. I think it's better than the second Thor, and nowhere near as good as the third one. That's where I stand on those.
The third Thor is the best.
Yeah, I love the third one, but the first one's good. It's got some good jokes in it, and it's Chris Hemsworth is good, although he has bleached blonde eyebrows in that first movie, which I think they stopped doing, and he looks bizarre. It's a really weird choice. I don't know why. And it's weird seeing what it's weird being reminded of what Tom Hiddleston's Loki was like before he became everyone's favourite character, when he was just a snivelly villain, before Joss Whedon sort of turned him into what people thought was like a cool, they then ran with that version of Loki. Like Loki in the first Thor movie kind of doesn't have a lot of lines for the first part, and then he's just kind of an evil bad guy. Tom Hiddleston is amazing, really good in it, but it's just interesting, having watched the Loki TV show recently. It's like, gosh, this character really has gone on a journey since since that first Thor movie. So it's cool. And Tom Hiddleston originally auditioned to play Thor, which strikes me as insane. I can't ever picture him as Thor at all.
No.
There's a multiverse version. They should do that one day. They should do a multiverse where Tom Hiddleston was cast as Thor and Chris Hemsworth is Loki. That would be a fun little Easter egg, I think. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But Iron Man, what do you think of Iron Man 2?
Right now, let me just check, because I Iron Man 2. Because Iron Man 1 is like my favourite, and I know exactly what happens. And Iron Man 2, what happens in... there's, what's his name?
Mickey Rourke's there, Sam Rockwell's
Mickey
there.
Rourke. It's okay. You know, it's fine. I don't really remember it that much. I remember Mickey Rourke with a big,
Yeah. There's got a cool scene at Monaco in a Grand Prix where Tony Stark's in the race and Mickey Rourke walks out to the track, and that's a really good bit.
But I do not have like a good memory of exactly what happens.
It's also the film where they introduced Black Widow. It's the first Scarlett Johansson's first appearance. It's not perfect, but I think it's fun. I think the criticisms of it is that people say it's like an episode of a TV show, like it's setting up lots of stuff for the future, and doesn't necessarily hang together as one film, which is like a fair criticism. But I still think with all that acknowledged, it's still a fun time.
Yeah,
you know, it's still a good way to spend a couple of hours, except for one sequence where Tony Stark uses a map that his dad built to make a new atom, which doesn't make any sense. Like, when you watch that scene play out, it's just complete nonsense. It's just Robert Downey Jr. waving his arms around and suddenly being like, oh, look at that, I've invented a new element. No, you haven't. But other than that, it's good, and I really like Mickey Rourke. And Sam Rockwell is... I really hope they bring back Sam Rockwell's character one day, Justin Hammer, because he's always a good time in any movie he does. So and guess who? Do you remember who has a cameo in Iron Man 2 with a speaking role? He has lines in it, speaking to Robert Downey Jr.
Is it his father? Yeah.
Nope, it is your friend of mine, Elon Musk.
What is it?
Yeah, Elon Musk has a little cameo in Iron Man 2. It's weird.
Oh wow!
Because it was before he was famous and before people before he was sort of. Famously quite a controversial character. He was just a big rich businessman, and it made sense for him to know who Tony Stark was, so they had a chat. But now it's like, it's
Elon Musk.
Not him. Anyway.
Anywho.
So shall we make a start on our special?
Yeah. Let's
Great. As I warned.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
So many.
Spoilers. Turn it off now. If you're in the car and you're like, just drag the cable out, etc. Don't crash. Don't crash your car or anything. But you can turn off now if you don't want any spoilers for the movie, because there's going to be full spoilers now. Okay, good. So we're going to talk about Spider-Man: No Way Home.
No Way Home.
The third Spider-Man movie in the MCU, but overall the 8th live-action Spider-Man movie and the 9th theatrically released Spider-Man movie, I think, if you're including Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. What an exciting set of Spider-Man's movies we have. So... this movie is the third one in the franchise. Spider-Man Homecoming, people liked. Spider-Man Far From Home, people liked. Spider-Man No Way Home is a different beast entirely. It has set the world on fire in a big way, dominating the box offices of his... dominating...
Sorry.
Dominating box offices all over the world. With its number one slot until the fifth Scream movie massacred it at the box office last weekend.
Did it?
To take the number one spot. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yes, the new Scream movie's made crazy amounts of money for like a slasher horror film. It's done really well, which is good for me. I'm happy to see that. And, after 5 weeks at number one, it's probably fine for Spider-Man No Way Home to not be number one at the box office, anymore. It's probably still at number two. So, yeah. We'll have a little chat about the stars of the movie, do you think? Shall we go through the cast of this film?
Yeah.
Okay, so first up, we've got in the title role of Spider-Man, Tom Holland playing Peter Parker.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of him in this movie? You weren't convinced by him in Homecoming?
I wasn't convinced about him by Homecoming, but I think he found his feet in Long Way Home. Long Way Home.
Nope.
Far From Home. Far From Home.
Nope.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, the second one. The second one.
Yeah.
Far From Home.
Yeah. So.
I think it was called Spider-Man Home is Where the Heart Is.
Yeah.
Home is where I hang my hat.
Home is where I
Home
sleep.
Alone. Spider-Man Home Alone.
Home Alone.
Is that one? Spider-Man Home Sweet Home Alone.
Spider-Man Sweet Home
for the
Alabama.
Holidays. Spider-Man Sweet Home Alabama. Spider-Man Home for the Holidays. Spider-Man in my home. Get out of my home, Spider-Man.
Get out of my home.
Spider-Man, why are you in my home? How many more movies can they do?
Oh, it'd be amazing if he could do more. I hope he does more. I really do.
I think he
wants to.
We'll talk more at the end, but I think he will.
Yeah. So I think for me personally, I speak personally, I think he found his feet in Far From Home. I really enjoyed that film. And then in this one, I think he's great. I think I really liked him in this one, and he has grown, and I think I need to watch Homecoming again, because I think maybe I'm very
because I can't. You got Michael Keaton in that movie. Like, how can you not like that movie? Michael Keaton's in it.
I know, but you don't have to like everything that Michael Keaton is in.
But
yeah, so I thought Tom Holland is amazing in this one.
Yeah, that's fair. That's good. I agree. I think Tom Holland is spectacular in this film. Yeah. He's carrying what is one of the biggest movies of all time on his shoulders pretty ably. Yeah, so, in an incredible way. Yes.
And the pressure, I think, of being... I don't know, because I feel like, I don't know, Tom Holland is so much in the public eye now that I feel like when you see interviews now, he looks knackered, doesn't he? He's like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. I mean, he's making a big deal out of that. He's insisting that he's going to retire, etc. But he's also in Uncharted, which is out next month, which is the start of another massive franchise. I'm not sure why he's signed on to do the Uncharted film if he doesn't want to be doing all this action stuff anymore.
No, but he said that he wants to be Spider-Man again. That's what I heard. Like, he would like to.
Yeah, he just want to be... He's like, on one hand, he's saying he wants to be Spider-Man again. If Marvel asks me, I'll be Spider-Man again. And Marvel are like, oh, yeah, we're going to do 3 more movies with Tom Holland, so that he will be Spider-Man again. And then he'll do another interview an hour later where he's like, oh, I just might retire and become a family man with my family.
Yeah, but I think he's quite a silly boy. I think he's quite, like, sometimes I watch it's quite endearing. I feel sometimes he just goes, whatever. Because I think, I don't know, like they've done so many interviews and I've watched a lot of them, and they look tired as well of talking about Spider-Man.
I don't know what they should do. They should do one interview and then it gets sent to all of the different people that want, like, why do they have to? It's ridiculous.
I don't know.
I haven't watched that many interviews because I do not want to. I don't care.
No, but
I don't know why they do it.
Yeah.
It's fine that you have done. It's not my...
Yeah. But there are loads, and I think you're right. You just do one, you get all the questions from around the world, and if you have the same question, you don't ask it, because I'm sure they get asked the same questions over and over and over again. Yeah. What's your favorite type of ice cream? What's your favorite part of Zendaya?
Her hair.
Her fun, a funny sense of humor.
Yeah. So that's Tom Holland, pretty good.
Yeah.
Next up, in the title role of Spider-Man, we've got Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker.
You're going straight for the Andrew Garfield.
Why not? We said we're doing spoilers.
Okay. I feel so naughty.
No, we're saying it.
Are we going to say this Andrew Garfield straight away?
I've warned you.
Oh, okay.
It's been warned.
We are talking ready. Because I haven't spoken to anyone about this. Anyone.
Andrew Garfield is in this movie.
Yeah.
He spent a full calendar year denying he was in the movie.
Poor guy. I feel so sorry
it's interesting because Toby Maguire equally could have been being asked all these questions, but I guess because Toby Maguire doesn't do anything now, he's not had to be in any interviews, whereas Andrew Garfield is still like a guy that does things.
Yeah.
So he was trying to promote his Lin-Manuel Miranda film, and people were just like, yeah, but come on, you're in that Spider-Man movie, aren't you? And he'd have to be like, no, and they'd be like, here's a picture of you in the Spider-Man movie, and he'd be like, no, that was somebody's made it on a computer, it's not me. It was him, he's in the movie, and it's fine, I don't mind. I've seen people online being like, oh, it's really bad that he lied, he shouldn't have lied, he's a liar now. It's like, what's wrong with being a liar? You lie, people lie every day, people tell little white lies every day. Nobody's died as a result of him saying he's not in Spider-Man. Like, calm down.
And also, thank you for lying, because it was the best surprise ever.
Yes, yes. Because even though that photo, that clearly wasn't photoshopped, Andrew leaked of him in the costume and stuff, and it was pretty clear, really, that he was going to be in it. It's still, he still had managed to make me doubt it enough that I was like, on my feet, screaming metaphorically when he turned up.
I just don't understand, why would somebody leak that photo? Like, why take the joy out of the surprise? Like, you are evil human being.
People are horrible. Because people suck. People are terrible. They're horrible
It's just like, why?
They want to get the scoop. They want to be the first person to tell the world instead of it being told in the way that the people making the story want it to be told. I know. It's ridiculous. But it was... I mean, so what's your history with Andrew Garfield playing Peter Parker? I asked you that knowing that...
Any.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was still excited to see him.
And then as he continued... What's your history of Andrew Garfield, the actor?
Andrew Garfield, I watched him... I've watched him in a few films.
He's in The Social Network?
I've watched him in The Social Network. And
Hacksaw
then
Ridge,
in Never Let Me Go, I think. I think he's in Never Let Me Go. Let me check. Yeah, so I watched him first in Never Let Me Go. And then The Social Network. And then, oh my goodness, that's it. I've only seen 2 films of his.
Wow.
That's amazing. I thought, like, it's so popular that I thought, and I find him endearing. I watched interviews with him, but I've never...
Oh, he's the world's most endearing man.
Yeah.
He's everybody's friend.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Oh, The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. I've seen him on that one.
Was he in that? He must have been a young man in that film.
Yeah, must have been young. I've seen the film, so I must have seen him in there, but I don't remember. But the ones I remember him is Social Network and Never Let Me Go, which is crazy.
I like it. Yeah. So you were excited to see him turn up? As everyone was. Yeah. Then he was in the movie. And also the great thing about this is he's in the movie a lot. He's not like, he doesn't pop up and go, oh, hey guys, good luck. He pops up and he's in the movie. Like he is then one of the main characters in the movie, which is just the best. What did you think of him once you'd settled into him being there? What was your take on his Peter Parker?
I loved it. And even having not watched the other Spider-Mans, it feels like he was like, oh, but am I the bad one? Like he was really like self-critical as a Spider-Man.
Yeah. He's like, I've never had a cool. I just fought a big guy in a metal rhino suit. I'm not a cool space guy like you.
And it was really endearing, and it was really lovely, and it was he looked excited to be there. He did his. I thought it was amazing. In fact, now I want to watch Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man, and The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Do you know what the secret is about those movies that everyone hates?
What?
They're really good.
Yeah, I don't know.
They're really good movies.
Yeah, I'm going to watch them because I feel, I don't know. And I felt held down. Garfield that he had to go into this franchise and everybody hating on him.
Yeah, but I don't think people have never hated him. People have always liked him, but people don't like those movies because they are, particularly the second one, they are completely held back by Sony's determination at the time to build a cinematic universe of their own with only Spider-Man as the character they controlled. So like the second movie's got so many little bits and pieces in it. It was like Felicia Hardy turns up for like a couple of scenes, who's like basically Spider-Man's version of Catwoman. She's the Black Cat. She pops up in it for like a handful of scenes. There's a bit at the end where you see like, here's the Dr. Octopus suit, and here's the Vulture suit, and here's a Venom thing. There's like a little Venom tease, and blah. And like the movie itself gets lost in the shuffle, but I like, even through all of that, Andrew Garfield is great in those movies, and people have always acknowledged that. And people have also always acknowledged that Emma Stone is amazing in those movies
she's amazing
as Gwen Stacy. And people now are dreaming of them doing a Gwenpool live-action Gwen Stacy Spider-Man film with her as Gwen Stacy Spider-Man, which would be the best.
In a way, it would be amazing if Andrew Garfield could do it again. And
well, we will talk more about that at the end of this podcast.
But yeah, I loved it, and I loved him in it, and I loved his. He was the funny Spider-Man, funny, sweet, self-deprecating Spider-Man, and I thought it was really cute.
Yeah, definitely. The common sort of thing with him is people always say he's the best. Of all the people that's played Spider-Man live action, he's the best at being Spider-Man. Right, like rather than Peter Parker, his Spider-Man is the best.
Yeah.
He most closely, like for me, Spider-Man growing up was the 90s animated series, and he is the closest to that version of Spider-Man that they've done on live action. So yeah, no, I think he's great, and I loved seeing him turn up. So next up, we've got in the title role of Spider-Man, Toby Maguire as Peter
Toby
Parker.
Maguire. I did not. Well, after I saw Andrew Garfield, I was like, "There's no way Toby Maguire is going to turn up. There's no way." And
I was like, "Is it going to happen? What's going to go on?"
But I was in shock. It's like, nah, he's never going to sign up for that. Never. And what does he do? He does. And he turns up. Like, that's the second Raw in the cinema. Like, it's such a fun cinematic experience. Because it was just like, Andrew Garfield arrives like, what? And then Tobey Maguire arrives and it's just like, no! That was fun. I was not expecting him to be there.
Yeah, no, it was pretty... And it was interesting the way, because, like, Andrew Garfield turns up and he's in his Spider-Man costume. He is Spider-Man. But then when Tobey Maguire turns up, he's just sort of wearing his own clothes. And for a bit, I was like, is he just going to be, like, the mentor figure now who's not... Is he going to suit up and be Spider-Man? And there's a moment where they're like, hey, you're just going to carry on looking like a sort of youth pastor, or are you actually going to... And he pulls his shirt down and shows that he's got a Spider-Man costume on underneath. And I was like, okay, I'm very excited. Because for me, it's like, I mean, I've always loved Spider-Man. And I saw his first Spider-Man movie back in 2002 in like a preview screening the week before it was officially out in the same cinema that then 19 years later I go and sit in to watch Spider-Man No Way Home. It could have been in the same screen. It could have potentially been in the same exact seat. Definitely not, because they've upgraded the cinema since, but maybe, you never know. Watching suddenly, 20 years of other movies and stuff melting away, and here's Tobey Maguire. It genuinely got to me. It was genuinely an incredible thing for him to suddenly be back as Spider-Man in the movie. What's your history with him as an actor and as a Spider-Man guy?
I watched all three Spider-Mans, Amazing Spider-Mans. As an actor, I really liked him growing up. So I watched quite a few, he's in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Pleasantville, The Cider House Rules, Wonder Boys. And then when he became Spider-Man, I was really excited because I really liked him as an actor. But then after that, I don't think I've watched many of his films.
He was in The Great Gatsby most notably recently, I think. Well, that's not recent now, it's like a decade ago.
No.
But he was in The Great Gatsby.
No. But no, like I used to be a fan, and then I watched him in Spider-Man, and I liked the first Spider-Man, and I think I kind of the more they went on, the more I didn't really, because also I really like Kirsten Dunst, and that's why I thought like Spider-Man was really like fun, but yeah. But it was never, like I said before in other episodes, after like the MCU universe started opening, I kind of put them at the side, and I didn't really give them any more chances, and I didn't really consider them very much because, the MCU universe is huge and it's getting better and better and bigger and grander and grander.
Now includes those Spider-Man movies,
and now includes them, so it's quite exciting actually. And I
actually, I think you'll find it's pretty exciting.
Actually, it's really exciting.
Actually, I think you need to stop and just appreciate that it's exciting for a minute.
So exciting.
Yeah, Tobey Maguire's amazing. Again, he turns up and he's properly Spider-Man. We'll talk about some of my favourite bits with him later on as we go through the movie. But yeah, it's just great seeing him back again. Andrew Garfield takes it out of those 3 Spider-Mans. Andrew Garfield is the best Spider-Mans in my opinion. But all 3 of them are great.
Is the most entertaining, I think, altogether.
Yeah. And I just like him getting his moment. People like Tom Holland already. I just like Andrew Garfield is now. He loved Spider-Man growing up. He's a big Spider-Man fan. He's now been allowed to be in a Spider-Man movie that people like and just enjoy. People enjoying his thing, and I like that for him. I'm glad that that's happened.
What I loved about having them all 3 on screen was the excitement that Tom Holland had having them there. You could see it, that he was like, oh yes, and I just, there's a scene at the end, we'll talk about it later, that it just really kind of, I don't know, it was lovely. And it was good because it felt like they worked really well together, and I think that's why this film works, because I think there's a lot of like weird decisions of why things are happening that in reality is like, well, if you just did that would have not happened. But because everybody kind of felt like everybody really loved being this film, you could I think you can forgive anything. Yeah,
agreed. So we won't spend as long on the other characters and actors, but we'll just run through some of the other notable people in this movie. Next up, we've got an actress that I just love so much, and is great in this movie. Maybe not who you think I'm about to name. Marissa Tomei as May Parker.
Love her.
I adore Marissa Tomei so much.
Yeah.
I rewatched all of Seinfeld recently, and she's very good at it. Then about once a year I watch My Cousin Vinny, because I think that is her performance in My Cousin Vinny is one of my favourite performances in any movie, and I just love Marissa Tomei, and I think people joke about the fact that May Parker has gone from being 90 in the Toby Maguire movies to in her 60s maybe in the Andrew Garfield movies, to then in her I guess very late 40s, 50s, very, very, very glamorous Marissa Tomei in the Tom Holland movies. And at some point, I think Sony were going to try and make a Aunt May film, which was a bad idea. But yeah, Marissa Tomei, I think, is great as May Parker, and we'll talk more about her later. You got Benedict Cumberbatch as Dr. Stephen Strange. What's your take? Do you like
Love him? I love Doctor Strange. Love him. Love Benedict Cumberbatch. He's funny and serious. Bit of a goof. Cucumber. Love it.
Yeah, a bit goofy, a bit serious. He's, you like him. You like to see it. Benedict Cumberbatch is everywhere nowadays, and it makes me want to dislike him. But he's just so good and stuff.
I love him.
And he's great as Stephen Strange.
I didn't think I would enjoy Doctor Strange when I watched the first film. I was like, oh, I'll watch it. I love it. I love Doctor Strange. It's great.
I can't wait for the next one. I can't even. This almost for me is bigger than Garfield or Maguire. Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn. Him being back, him just doing his thing again, and we'll talk about it more as we go on. But the one big thing I want to say is he's so good in that original Spider-Man movie, but when he's the Green Goblin, they make him wear this ridiculous Power Rangers mask. And they very quickly get rid of it in this film and just allow... Willem Dafoe is a man who has the face of a goblin. He doesn't need to have a mask on. And they allow him to use his elastic, incredible face and it's just the best. It's so good. It's almost he's not as much... He's probably better in the original Spider-Man movie because he's the main villain, he's the only villain, etc. But it almost is better in this movie because you really get to see him doing this thing. It's so great. Then we've got Alfred Molina as Dr. Octopus. What did you think of him?
Yeah, fun. It's Dr. Octopus. He turns up. He does things.
Got loads of arms all over the place. Yeah, good times. Jamie Foxx as Max Dillon, Electro.
Mm-hmm. He was in the one with Andrew Garfield, yeah?
Yes, but in the one with Andrew Garfield, he's blue. He's bright blue and bald. So he's very different in this movie, and he's like a geeky nerd guy. And in this movie, I think Jamie Foxx was like, "Okay, I'll do it if I get to look like me, and if I get to be a cool guy like Jamie Foxx is, and not a big nerd like I was in The Amazing." Because he's just played himself almost, Jamie Foxx in this film, and kind of I'm all right with it. I'm pretty much fine with it. He's a good. And then I've just written special effects teams for the Lizard and Sandman because there's no actor there for those two.
For who?
The Lizard and Sandman.
Oh, is it not the same? Did it not use the same actors?
I think they use the same actors and they got them to like record voice lines. But I mean, the Sandman is always Sand in this movie, and Rhys Ifans is the Lizard is always the Lizard in this movie up until the very end. But I am 95% certain that the footage you see of the real actors at the end of this movie is footage that they have taken from their original films and sort of spliced in. So they're very much like there's 5 villains in this movie, but really there's 3 villains, and then these 2 are sort of there to be there, but they're not amazing. And then you got your original MCU people, Zendaya. We all love Zendaya. She's the best. She's MJ. She's great. Jacob Batalon as Ned Leeds. Probably deserves a lot of credit. He's really good in these films, and he does a lot in this.
Fun.
It's good.
And in this one, I think is more fun. I think Zendaya and Jacob Batalon have more screen time in these ones.
They do, which is almost surprising because I kind of thought that, like, with so many old characters coming back, I thought that these 2 would get lost in the shuffle, but no, they
and they have some great moments.
Time. Yeah.
Especially there's a scene with the grandma, which I think is just like, when they're at Ned's house and the grandma is there. It's like it's so much fun.
Zendaya's throwing bread at Andrew Garfield.
Yes,
it's really good. Jon Favreau as Happy Hogan. It's mad to think. Like I've been watching those. I watched Iron Man 1 the other day. He's in that movie. Like he's been in these movies for so many years now. And it's great that he keeps popping up and doing his thing. And he's a funny guy. I like him. I like Happy Hogan.
I love Jon Favreau. It's a good hug. It's a hug.
This was an exciting one for me. We don't get much of this, but I was pretty happy when it happened. We have Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock in this film, Daredevil.
Yeah.
What did you think of that? Did you? Because you've seen that Netflix show, have you? Or
I watched maybe a few episodes, but it was a long time ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a long time ago. It was when we lived in Japan because we watched Jessica Jones together, if you remember.
Yes, we watched Jessica Jones, and then Daredevil was part of it. And I think, for example, you just said Jessica Jones. I was like, oh yeah, and I completely forgot about Daredevil. I know of its existence. I have watched something, but I cannot tell you. It's really weird how I don't really remember. When I saw him, I was like, oh, I know who he is. And it's quite exciting. But
that's fair. His take on Matt Murdock is definitive for me as far as live action Daredevils go. I mean, he's better than Ben Affleck when he played Daredevil.
It's a shame they didn't get Ben Affleck as Daredevil.
No, that's fine. I'm absolutely fine with it. Bad. So he's probably got like less than a minute of screen time, but it's good to have confirmation that we're hopefully in the future going to get some more Charlie Cox because I love him. And again, we get very little of this guy, but I just want to mention him because he's good when he turns up. Benedict Wong as Wong. And we find out in this movie he's the new Sorcerer Supreme, which is an exciting little wrinkle. It's cool, man. I like it. So let's start moving through and talking a little bit about how people reacted to this movie, how it's done. Box office. As of January the 20th of this year, Spider-Man No Way Home has made $706.9 million in America and Canada, and $926.3 million across the rest of the world, meaning it's made so far, about a month after it came out, $1.633 billion. Highest grossing film of 2021, 8th highest grossing film of all time, 4th highest grossing film in the United States and Canada, the highest grossing Spider-Man film ever, and the highest grossing film ever released by Sony. Pretty successful stuff, and to do that in the midst of a global pandemic is testament to how much people love Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And hopefully, it will have led to more transmission of COVID, sadly, but that can't. I don't know. Let's move on.
Yeah.
It is currently sitting on the Rotten Tomatoes tomato meter at 93%, a very respectable score.
Yeah.
It has an audience score of 98%, and even more impressively, on the IMDb, it's got 8.7 out of 10, and is currently ranked in their kind of famous top 250 films of all time list. Based on user rankings, it is at number 20, which is pretty impressive. And also, just as an interesting little twist, it's currently sitting right between Seven Samurai and the movie Seven. So it's in between a couple of sevens. No idea why, but it is. Take that for what it's worth. Absolutely. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the events of this movie, the plot of the film, as it were. We'll go through it a little bit.
The plot is very simple if you think about it. It's like
pretty much. So it opens pretty much exactly where Far From Home ends.
Yes.
With the death of Quentin Beck. So we get a tiny little bit of Jake Gyllenhaal in this movie, which just makes it even better. And has revealed to the world that Peter Parker is Spider-Man through the with the help of J. Jonah Jameson, played by returning to Spider-Man J.K. Simmons.
Yes.
Which we didn't mention him in the cast thing then, but what do you think of that? Like, do you have any lasting nostalgia for J.K. Simmons in this role?
Oh, no.
Interesting. Then
I don't know. Like, I guess when I rewatched some clips from the, I think he was in the it was in the Spider-Man movies, not Amazing Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, it was in the Toby Maguire ones, yeah.
And I couldn't remember him very clearly as a, and so when I saw him again, I was like, oh, what's J.K. Simmons doing here? And then I remembered that he was part of that universe as well.
Yeah. You have to go back and watch those Toby Maguire films, because like literally, I watched all of them before Spider-Man: No Way Home came out, and that first Spider-Man movie, I think it's an hour before J.K. Simmons turns up as J. Jonah Jameson. And literally, he comes on screen and just immediately starts setting off fireworks. Like, he is incredible. Like, he's so funny. And he's in all three of those movies, and every scene he's got, he's amazing in it. He's really, really good in that role. And literally to the point where when they made the Amazing Spider-Man films with Andrew Garfield, they didn't recast the role because it's like there's no one else can play. He looks exactly like the character in the comics. It's impossible for anyone else to come in and play J. Jonah Jameson. He is J.K. Simmons at this point. So like in the Andrew Garfield movies, he still works for the newspaper, but you only see he interacts with J. Jonah Jameson through email. You just see an email from him at one point because there's no other actor that they could put in the role, so they just kind of don't bother trying. So it was that when they wanted to bring the character back for these movies, it's great that they were just like, do you know what, J.K. Simmons, let's just bring him back. Sad that he doesn't have the hair. He's meant to have this like high top sort of flat hairstyle that they did really well in the original movies, but he doesn't have in this one. But other than that, it's just really fun to see him back in this role and hating on Spider-Man like he always does. Does. In the I remember in the animated cartoon, it's because you find out it's because some guy in a mask killed his son or attacked his wife or something, and now he just hates people in masks. And he even like there's a Spider-Man villain called Scorpion, who's just a guy with a big scorpion tail, who his whole thing is he's trapped in his suit. He can't take his suit off, and he's angry about it. And he's created by J. Jonah Jameson in an effort to make something that will take down Spider-Man, which is an interesting. I don't know if they'll ever do that live action, except the Spider-Man Homecoming has got a character in it who is Mac Gargan, who is the guy that would become Scorpion. So they have done a little bit of legwork to set that up. Anyway, I know more than I should about Spider-Man. Let's move on.
Yeah, you do. I'm like, okay.
So Spider-Man knows, and we've got this great sequence where he immediately grabs MJ because everyone starts yelling at MJ in the street.
Yeah.
Takes her. There's a great bit where he just flies up to the top of a bridge and drops her down and gets on the phone to Ned, and then she's like, you might know how to stand precariously on a girder inches wide on top of a bridge. I don't. Please, could we not be here? And Zendaya immediately obviously is great. In fact, so then we have this sequence where they go back to Aunt May's house where Peter Parker lives, and May and Happy Hogan are in the process of breaking up, or at least Happy Hogan thinks they're breaking up. Aunt May clearly doesn't think that they were ever a thing in the first place, beyond like a casual thing. Poor Happy Hogan, you feel sorry for him.
Happy.
Yeah, and there's a great bit where they burst in they hear some noise in Peter Parker's room, and they burst in, and Peter's in there getting out of his Spider-Man costume, and MJ's there with him as well. And we have a moment where they move through and it's easy to miss, but Zendaya has some fantastic comic timing in this little sequence where she's like handing Peter Parker his shirt, and like people are ringing the doorbell, and she's running up to the doorbell, and just the way she kind of moves and blocks the door and stuff. She's very funny in like a very short amount of time. She really is, people say it all the time, but God, Zendaya is good.
Yeah.
God, she's good. And then we get to this process in the movie where people have found out that he's Spider-Man. It's not great. Very quickly, the legal ramifications are solved by the arrival of Charlie Cox, Matt Murdock, who is a lawyer in the Marvel world, so it makes sense that he would be there. There's a great bit where somebody throws a brick through the window, and Matt Murdock catches it, and Peter Parker's like, "How did you do that?" And he's just like, I'm a really good lawyer. I liked that line. That really made me laugh. And then it moves into this area where they are all... There's a great scene. What do you think of the scene where they return to school?
The school is really divided, isn't it? Between who...
There's a whole thing of like who believes Mysterio,
and
and
who believes in that, and it's
and even like two of his teachers are really excited that he's back and have made a little shrine, and one of his teachers, played by Hannibal Buress, is just like, "I know what you did. You killed Mysterio. I don't like you," kind of thing. And they're like, "Oh, he's a conspiracy theorist. Ignore him." It's quite a funny little bit. And then all three of them have applied to go to MIT. Which is in Boston, and immediately we know that can't happen because Spider-Man is a New Yorker and he can only ever be in New York. He's only ever allowed to be in New York. He can't leave New York. Don't you dare leave New York. Peter Parker's not allowed. So, I've seen criticisms of this movie where like it's very funny that they think they were all going to get into one of the most difficult to get into universities in America, MIT, and the idea that the only thing stopping them is Peter Parker's reputation. But anyway, that's the way the movie goes, so we're going to go with it. Yeah. They've all applied to go there. They all get letters telling them they're not allowed to go there, and basically tell them it's because either they are Peter Parker or they're friends with Peter Parker. Yeah. So,
which is weird.
It is weird. I don't know if that would happen, but again, it's a comic book movie. It's fine. Yeah. Ignore it. Just go with it. So yeah, because it's weird because they don't have any sort of trial. They very quickly smooth over any legal ramifications.
It's finished. It's like, okay, murdered, that's it.
It's still then concerned with his reputation.
Yeah.
Just as Peter Parker, people don't like him. People don't want him to go to university. And if you happen to be his friend, how dare you? We get some really good bits of Tony Revolori here being Flash Thompson and writing a book about being his friend, which again doesn't quite make logical sense because there's a joke where he's saying he's Peter Parker's best friend and he writes a book. Yeah. He has a book about being Peter Parker's best friend. But then he still gets into MIT, even though he's like publicly... I guess the idea is that even though he's saying he's Peter Parker's best friend, no one believes him or cares. No. Whereas with Ned and MJ, people are like, no, we know that you're his friend, so we're going to be annoyed at you. So Peter immediately decides there's only one way to solve this problem, and it is with the help of a wizard. Only a wizard can help me today. So he goes to the Sanctum Sanctorum in, I think it's in Greenwich Village in New York, canonically.
Yeah.
And goes in and asks Stephen Strange if he can help to... What does he initially ask him? Because it's not to make people forget. He asks him for something else. I can't remember what it is. I don't remember exactly what Peter Parker asks him.
No.
But basically, Doctor Strange ends up being like, what I can do is I can make everyone forget... that you are Spider-Man, and Wong is like, don't do that, and Stephen Strange, because he's Stephen Strange, is like, oh, I'm going to do it though, and Wong's like, you naughty little wizard, and he gets in a portal and leaves the movie. Let's Doctor Strange get on with being a troublemaker, and then he makes this spell where he's going to make everyone forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and they both, like... Yeah. Doctor Strange gets annoyed at Peter Parker in this moment for like ruining the spell, but equally Doctor Strange maybe should like set the ground rules out before he starts the spell. There's no time crunch here. He should maybe say, hey Peter, what's going to happen now is I'm going to do this spell, and then everyone, including me and your aunt and your friends, everyone is going to forget that you're Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And then Peter Parker could have and then Peter Parker could have said, well, can we make a couple of changes? But instead he just makes this little quip going, nice knowing you, Peter Parker, and Peter's like, what? Hang on, who? You? And MJ, and my aunt, and Ned, and he ruins the spell. It all sort of goes wrong. You can see it going. You can see it breaking up, and it's all going crazy. And Doctor Strange has to like compress it into this cube thing, and then is like, right, well that spell didn't work. I'm not doing it again. You're an idiot, and I don't like you. Go away. And there's a bit where he says like, if you've asked them to change their minds and they won't change their minds, and now this spell clearly isn't going to work, then I guess there's nothing we can do. And Peter's like, oh, I could ask them to change. I could just ask them if they would change their mind. And Benedict Cumberbatch is like, you mean you didn't ask them? You mean you came to me and asked me to alter reality before you just appealed to the university? And Peter's like, right, okay. And then instead of going, like, presumably they have an official appeals process, but instead of doing that, he tracks down the woman on a bridge. To ask her, the admissions lady, to ask her if she'll change her mind. And this is when the movie kicks into high gear, and we should know that this is when the movie kicks into high gear, because if Spider-Man is ever on a bridge, it's never going to go well. Spider-Man exclusively gets attacked on bridges. It's true, in the movies, he's like, every movie I think he gets attacked on a bridge. So he gets attacked on this bridge. By who? Who does he get attacked by? Whom? Whom does he get attacked
Molina.
by? Alfred Molina.
That plays
Otto
Dr. Otto Octavius.
Otto Octavius. And he a pretty cool, like, you see his octopus arms are smashing up through this bridge, and he comes up through underneath it, and he's like, hi, Peter. And Peter Parker's like, who is what? And they have this fight.
That's the thing, because your brain goes, how does Peter Parker not know him?
Because he's never had an... Well, that's
exactly.
Bizarre,
but I was like, how does he not know him? And I was like, but he doesn't. What is happening? Ooh.
Exactly. And they have a little fight, and Dr. Octopus gains the upper hand, but then does this thing where he tries to stab Peter Parker through the neck. He tries to really just shank him through the neck with this big needle. It's like really vicious. But luckily Peter's wearing this Stark technology Iron Spider suit, not his standard suit. Yeah. So, which results in it bending the metal in this octopus arm, which I think in Spider-Man 2, that never happens. Those octopus arms are like indestructible. So that's immediately like shows that the technology that people have access to in the MCU is maybe more advanced than what Dr. Octopus was working with in his original world. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Marvel has more money than Sony, so they can make better suits with computers. So he sort of like, there's a bit where he takes some of the nanobots that make up the Iron Spider suit and absorbs them into his own tentacles. Idiotically, because it very quickly, the nanobots just take over the tentacles and it completely immobilizes Dr. Octopus. And from that point on in the film, he's not a villain anymore. At least he's not a threat. That's like, he turns up as a villain and is a threat for 3 minutes, and then he's just like a presence in the movie, but no longer threatening in any way. Which is an interesting. I kind of like that they went that way with it, because the whole idea in Spider-Man 2 is that he's not a bad guy. He's a really good guy who has these artificial intelligence arms that are sort of numbing his emotions. It doesn't fully make sense, but it's the arms that are making him bad, not him. Yeah. But the arms are sort of like, I think there's meant to be this chip that inhibits how much access the arms have to his brain, but that chip gets broken and it kind of overwhelms him and it turns him into this kind of crazy psychotic guy. Yeah. So once he's immobilized, he can't really do much.
I think that's a good thing about this film. Like, people, the bad guys are not bad for no reason. There is a reasoning behind them being bad.
Definitely.
And I think all the bad guys they brought back were just, victims of their circumstances, maybe?
Victims of circumstance, or victims of crazy experiments gone horribly wrong, which is so often the way in Spider-Man. But yeah, so it's definitely true, because Otto Octavius isn't a bad guy inherently, at least not in this world. I think in the comics he's a pretty bad dude, but in the films they kind of play him off as a sort of tragic inventor. Norman Osborn, again, not an evil guy until he takes the Green Goblin serum, which turns him into a sort of schizophrenic, psychotic killer. And Electro, a nice, friendly nerd who unfortunately falls into a big vat full of electric eels, which makes... They make fun of that a lot in this film, which is good because it's so stupid. So that's how that plays out, and then he's sort of trying to work out what's going on with this crazy guy with the arms that thinks he knows Peter but says it's not Peter, and he's like, I am Peter, and he says, well, not the Peter I know, and it gets confusing. And then suddenly what happens? Something hits the bridge and explodes. Something orange that explodes in a green flame. Could it be a pumpkin bomb? Yes, it could. It could be a pumpkin bomb. And we see the silhouette of a very recognisable figure on a very recognisable glider, and we hear a very recognisable laugh. And then very quickly, we're dragged out of that scene, taken back to the Sanctum Sanctorum, where Doctor Strange has already caught the lizard. We don't even get to see the lizard being caught in this movie. He's just already in a cage. Dr. Octopus is in a cage, and Doctor Strange is like, right, let me explain the movie to you now. I'm going to sit you down and explain the movie. Here's the movie.
Yeah, there you are.
The spell was bad. Bad spell did bad things. Now everyone who knows you're Peter Parker from every multiverse, or everyone who knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man from every version of every multiverse, is coming into this multiverse, starting with this big dinosaur man and that octopus dude. And Peter Parker's like, I saw a guy on the bridge who was laughing, and that seemed bad. And they decide that the only way they're going to solve this problem is with the help of MJ, and Ned. So MJ and Ned turn up, and they get given the mission by Doctor Strange to corral all of these bad people that have come from other multiverses together. He gives Peter this sort of... and it's interesting, actually, because there's a sequence early on where everyone knows he killed Mysterio, or thinks they knows he killed Mysterio, and somebody throws this paint on him, and it ruins his suit, which is why he's wearing his Iron Spider suit in that opening scene, which saves his life. And then his Iron Spider suit is being destroyed by Dr. Octopus, so he has to put his old suit back on, but he can't get the paint off it. So he turns it inside out, and it becomes this black suit with sort of gold lining, which in the official merchandise of the film, the toys and stuff, they've made the toys of this where it looks like that's an actual suit he's made to be black with gold lining. But when you see the movie, it's clear that it's just the inside of the suit with the... It's weird. I kind of liked when I realised that was what that suit was, because you saw it in all the trailers for the film, and I never realised that that's sort of what was going on. And he gives him this attachment to the wrist of it that turns his web shooters into teleportation things. So if he hits somebody with it, it kind of teleports it into one of these cages in the basement of the Sanctum Sanctorum. So Peter swings off to look for some bad dudes. He goes to a power station that has had a sort of there's been a report of a bad thing there.
Too much energy.
There's too much something there. So he goes and he swings along.
Electricity.
Too much electricity. So he goes and he swings along, and he's got his phone sellotaped to his chest. It looks bizarre, and Ned and MJ are watching, and he encounters Electro, who sort of forms from the pylons into Jamie Foxx. Naked, completely naked, who immediately attacks Spider-Man, doesn't really know what's going on, but sees a Spider-Man and decides to attack it, because that's what he does. And then we are introduced to this film's take on the Sandman, which is one of the things I'm not very keen on in this film. These are two characters that you probably don't remember that well, or you haven't seen Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I bet you don't. So what did you think of this when these guys turned up?
Well, I wasn't really sure who the Sandman was, and I wasn't really sure if he was a good guy or a bad guy. I was a bit confused. Yeah,
because he kind of seems like a good guy, right?
Yeah, I thought he was a good guy, because I think he was trying to help him out, but then I realised that he's not a good guy.
So his story, so the Sandman is Flint Marko, right? And in Spider-Man 3, Flint Marko is a criminal who escapes from prison and falls into a sort of nuclear testing facility thing he ends up being combined. His atoms are combined with sand, and he's turned into the Sandman, and he can sort of control sand and become sand, etc. And his whole thing is he's got a daughter that he wants to protect and wants to love and wants to provide for, and that's sort of what's pushed him to be a criminal. So he's probably the best example of a victim of circumstance, I guess, in these movies. He's not inherently a bad guy. He's just trying to provide for his family with the skills and tools that he has. And he, unfortunately, it's revealed that he was the murderer of Uncle Ben, which is a very odd retcon And sort of Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker has to kind of come to an emotional and mature understanding and kind of ends up forgiving him. So Spider-Man 3 actually ends with Flint Marko not dying. He's one of the few villains that doesn't die at the hands of Spider-Man.
Okay.
And sort of there's this odd scene where he turns to sand and floats away on the wind. So I guess if he then, after that happens, he then is brought into this version of the universe, there's no reason why he would be a bad guy immediately. So I think it does make logical sense that he turns up and is initially friendly towards Spider-Man. But he's still sort of an unstable criminal, but like a petty criminal, not like an evil genius kind of criminal, which kind of makes sense as to why he maybe makes some of the choices he does throughout the film. But it's definitely... There's definitely a point where he's like, well, I'll just be a bad guy again, which doesn't fully... Yeah. But I guess the movie doesn't have time to give all of the characters a big emotional arc. So I guess Sandman sort of gets left behind a little bit, as does, I mean, even the Lizard even more so. The Lizard really isn't a character in this movie. It's just a big CGI thing that scratches at people and stuff, but it's fine. Electro, on the other hand, is quite a big character in the movie, and I think they've improved him since The Amazing Spider-Man 2. A lot of people... There's a lot of questions around why he's in the movie and how he's in the movie and why he's different. Like it feels like they just wanted him to be there because they like Jamie Foxx, and who doesn't? We all like Jamie Foxx. Yeah. So you kind of let it go, but like there's an idea where like the idea is everyone who knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man is coming into this universe. Well, in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Electro never finds out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, so it doesn't actually fully make internal sense. The internal logic of the movie doesn't fully come together there, but you kind of let it go because here's what it is. So Peter Parker catches both of them and sends them back to the Sanctum Sanctorum. And then he gets a call on his phone from Aunt May telling him that somebody who he's looking for has turned up at her place of work. And she works for Feast, which is cool because that's like a comics thing. Like Aunt May working for this food bank is in the comics. It's in the recent Spider-Man video games. It's not something they've done in the live action movies before, really. No. And it's cool to see her kind of working there and being involved. And we see the first we see of Norman Osborn is he's in this alleyway, which is kind of, I think, filmed, like there's a lot of alleyway scenes in the original Spider-Man films. And I don't know if he's in this alleyway because it's almost a throwback to those original Sam Raimi movies. I might be overthinking it, but there's kind of a very intentional moment where he smashes the mask up and then we're like, right, we're not going to get the mask anymore. That's good. And then he turns up at Aunt May's work and
we're not going to get the mask anymore. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you. And Peter kind of goes, and Aunt May sort of has very much decided that Norman Osborn needs help. He's kind of an old man who doesn't really understand where he is and what's happening to him, and he deserves to be helped. He doesn't deserve to be treated like a villain. Yeah. Even though Aunt May doesn't understand that he tried to like fling a bus full of children off a bridge once. Like he's definitely a bad guy, but it's fine. I guess it's fine. So Peter sort of is convinced by Aunt May to start thinking about ways to help these people rather than just send them back to die. At the hands of their universe's version of Spider-Man. There's a great bit here where, I don't know if you noticed, but where in the foreground of the shot, Peter Parker and Aunt May are having a conversation about what they should do to help Norman Osborn. And in the background, Willem Dafoe is just pocketing donuts.
Oh, yeah.
He's just grabbing donuts and putting them in his pocket. Yeah. It's a really funny moment. So then they take him back to the place. The Sanctum Sanctorum, and they're sort of they don't put him in the cage. They're just like chatting to him and talking to him about how they're going to help and what they can do. And Doctor Strange turns up and he's like, "Oh, great, you found another one!" and just immediately kicks him into a cage. Yeah. And then they have this sort of slightly awkward conversation where they're all talking about they kind of realise that they're all going to die at the hands of Spider-Man, etc. Stephen Strange, Doctor Strange, is like, "Well, that's what it is." He tries to make them understand that there are infinite multiverses and having the fact that in some versions these characters die, these people die, is neither here nor there. And I guess as a doctor and as a mature adult man, Doctor Strange is, broadly correct in his assertion. But Peter Parker's a much younger man. He's much more emotional about the whole situation, especially considering the fact that he's thinking about it's effectively me that's killing these people. It's their version of Spider-Man, like it's their Peter Parker, but it's still me. In a way, so he decides, no, I want to try and help them. So he's got this box. Stephen Strange has got this box. He's going to press the button on it. He's going to send them all back to their universes and solve the problem. And Peter decides to instead grab it. And then we get one of the best action sequences in the movie.
Yeah. Everything is like, is it like it goes a little bit or like, vroom, vroom. Everything moves and Doctor Strange.
Well, Doctor Strange pulls Peter into the mirror dimension.
Yeah.
And all the like big wormholes open up in the city. They're falling through, and they're on top of this train. And suddenly, there's hundreds of this train kind of surrounds them. And then there's this portal that is falling through, and it's visually an amazing sequence. And eventually, Peter, with the power of maths, manages to gain the upper hand on Doctor Strange. Traps him in the mirror dimension. Grabs his ring that lets him make the portals. That will be important later. And grabs the box that will break the spell. Yeah. Strands Doctor Strange in the mirror dimension and comes back and is able to start helping them. So they decide that they're going to move. The gang's going to move. They're not going to stay in the basement dungeon. They're going to go. Where do they go? Do you remember?
They go to Happy's house.
They go to Happy's house. They decide that's the best place to go. What
I think Tom Holland, why is so perfect for Spider-Man, is because Spider-Man is a kid, really. He's a high school kid. Yeah. And high school kids do not make necessarily the brightest decisions. And I think it's perfect because whatever he does with Doctor Strange is wrong. As an adult looking in, you're like, well, you shouldn't listen to the adult. Yeah. But he acts completely on impulse as a kid, and because he looks so young, I think he's just perfect. It's just so believable in a way.
Do you think, not to jump ahead, but do you think where that character is at the end of this movie, do you think he's closer to having that mature adult point of view on things?
I think so, yeah. I think there's a big evolution of Peter Parker in this film.
Yeah, he goes on a journey for sure.
Yeah, I think he also shows the skill that Tom Holland has as an actor, that he does look more like an adult.
Yeah,
he is now a young man and not a teenager anymore. So I think he's a very skilled actor as well.
Yeah, we'll talk more when we get to the end. But I love where this film leaves Peter Parker.
Yeah,
I do really hope they do another 3 movies with Tom Holland, because they have set themselves up for some proper street level Spider-Man stuff, which I really, really want to see. So they go to Happy's house, and Happy has a fabricator, a Tony Stark fabricator, which in the MCU means you can make anything you want in this machine. You can do anything you want forever. It's fine. Anything that you want to make, here it is. So that's pretty good. That's useful. So he sets about trying to make cures for the various villains, which is a big task for a high school student. One of the things that these movies often forget, I think, is that as well as being able to climb up walls, how intelligent these characters are meant to be is another superpower, because no high school student ever would be able to understand this stuff. So the first thing he does is he makes a cure for Dr. Octopus, which works. He makes a new inhibitor chip to stop the arms controlling him, and it kind of cures and heals Dr. Octopus, which is a nice moment. And then, unfortunately, very quickly things start to go wrong, and there's a scene, one of my favourite scenes in the movie, starts with Peter, suddenly his spider sense, or what they call his Peter tingle, which I don't like. I don't like that
I thought
joke.
It was cute.
No,
the Peter tingle.
It's too cute. It's the spider sense. Maybe I'm being too much of a stuck in the mud sort of Spider-Man fan, but it's every time they called it his Peter tingle, I was in my head, I was like, this spider sense, guys, cool spider sense. Stop making fun of his cool powers. So his spider sense comes back, and there's this scene where the camera's right in his face, and Tom Holland acts the hell out of this moment where he's walking through the apartment and he can tell something is right, something's wrong, and he realizes what it is, and he shoots a web where he knows he needs to shoot a web, and it's that no longer Norman Osborn, now the Green Goblin, who is back, and you just see Willem Dafoe smile, and like the guy with his face, I don't know how he does it. The Green Goblin's back, and immediately he's like, as if I was going to let you cure me. I've been stuck in there watching the world through Norman's eyes. I've seen how Aunt May, he has a big go at her about Aunt May, being like, she's made you weak, she's made you soft, I'm going to and it all kicks off like
Yeah.
Aunt May really tries to help. She grabs this thing. She grabs the sort of cure for the Green Goblin and tries to get in with it, but she just gets swatted aside. And we get this incredible fight scene where Dr. Octopus sort of runs away, effectively. The lizard is in the van downstairs, and as soon as he hears things kicking off, he's like, oh, I knew this was going to happen. He just breaks out the van and runs away. And Jamie Foxx's Electro, who's sort of... Before you knew that Norman Osborn was bad again, Jamie Foxx seemed like the danger, because he's sat there really like getting ready to be cured and being like, I don't know if I want to be cured. I kind of like being Electro.
Yeah.
And he sort of goes off as well, and we're left with Peter Parker having to face down a fully returned Green Goblin, which is amazing. It's like it's the Green Goblin fight scene that the original movie never was able to do. It's so good. They're pulling off these wrestling moves on each other. They're smashing each other through the floor. There's an amazing bit where Spider-Man jumps up and just starts punching Willem Dafoe in the face, and Willem Dafoe is just laughing and laughing and laughing, and it's so scary. It's like a scary moment. That he's unleashing as much power as he can on this guy, and the guy is just laughing at him because he's completely mad. And they have this great fight. They're going all over this building, and it ends up with them in the lobby. And all of the police have arrived. J. Jonah Jameson is there yelling about Spider-Man being evil, and the Goblin's glider arrives. Norman Osborn jumps up on his glider, says something to Peter about what he's going to do, and then chucks a pumpkin bomb at... Yeah, it's pretty sad. Chucks a pumpkin bomb at Aunt May.
Oh.
Who is just blown apart immediately. Like... Oh. Because
so sad.
And the glider smashes into her, and then the pumpkin bomb gets thrown at her, and you think, like, Peter thinks she's going to be okay, and she's not okay, but she gets to drop the line. Yeah?
Yeah.
What does she say?
With great power comes great responsibility. But I think she says it slightly differently.
She says it very slightly differently. She says, like... When you have that sort of power, with it comes great responsibility. She says something like that, but she broadly says the line. She says it better than... So, like in the original movie, Toby Maguire, Uncle Ben, says, with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah. And you're like, what a line. That's a great line. Well done. Yeah. Then when they made the Amazing Spider-Man movies with Andrew Garfield, Martin Sheen played Uncle Ben. And I think because they didn't want to repeat too much what had happened in the Tobey Maguire movies, they don't let him say with great power comes great responsibility. Instead, he says something like...
Garfield.
Yeah, instead he literally says to him, look, Peter, the thing is, when you've got a lot of power, right? When you've got all this power, along with that power also must come a large amount of responsibility. Like, he says this bizarre, mangled, stupid sentence. Yeah. Which is why later in the movie, when Tom Holland is like, oh, she said, with great power comes great responsibility. Tobey Maguire's like, oh, my Uncle Ben said that to me. And Andrew Garfield kind of goes, yeah, me too. I was like, no, you liar. No, he didn't. You wouldn't remember. There's no way you'd remember that nonsense, bizarre paragraph of words that he spouted at you, because it didn't make any sense. But yeah, she gets to say with great power comes great responsibility, which is just, I mean, to have... Because this Tom Holland has never had an Uncle Ben. Like, that Uncle Ben is dead before you ever meet this version of Peter Parker. So you don't know, like, the audience has never known if he's heard that line, if anyone's said that to him before. And the immaturity that this Peter Parker's had up to this point has always sort of hinted at, no, he's not yet had that journey. He's not done that. Maybe Uncle Ben must have died in some other way. So then to have it be Aunt May is pretty upsetting. Like, it's a really emotional, like, for this movie that's got so much going on in it, and they're trying to squeeze so many different ideas in, to have this really upsetting moment happen in this film is impressive. That it really did hit me. I've seen this movie twice, and on the second time it got to me even more, because I was less like, the first time I watched it I was like, oh they're killing Aunt May. The second time I was like, Aunt May's gonna die. Oh. So yeah. But then we don't have time to mourn, because Peter
No.
disappears.
There's no time to do anything. There's no time for real emotions.
Peter disappears, and we go and we then spend the next section of the movie for a few minutes with MJ and Ned, who are at Ned's grandma's house, trying to work out what they're going to do. They've got this box, and they're like, should we push the button on the box? Should we send them all back? Or, do we need to speak to Peter first? Does he want us to do that? What do we do? And Ned's got the ring from Doctor Strange, and he's like, I just want to find Peter, and they see a crackle. They see a crackle in the air. And they're like, "Did you just watch it?" And he tries it again, and eventually he opens up a portal. They see a Spider-Man, and they're like, "Peter, Peter, come here!" And as soon as that portal opened, and you see in the distance this Spider-Man, I immediately was like, "That's not Tom Holland."
No, well, I did. I was like, well, it has to be Tom Holland.
No, I was like, that's not Tom Holland. That doesn't look like Tom Holland. That's not his suit. That's not Tom Holland. And he came through, and then he takes off the mask, and it's Andrew Garfield, and the cinema goes insane. The cinema lost its mind the first time I watched this movie. For good reason, because it's such a I think also because I was so let down earlier in the year by WandaVision, which kind of implied it was going to do this stuff. Like it made out that Evan Peters was coming back to play Quicksilver again, and then it just sort of didn't do it. It just kind of was like, no, actually, no, it's not Evan Peters. It is Evan Peters, but he's not playing Quicksilver. He's playing some guy, and it was like, and it just felt like I was so hopeful that WandaVision was going to do all this cool multiverse stuff, but then when this movie looked like it was going to do it, I was always like, it's not going to do it. They're not going to have actual Andrew Garfield turn up. So then when he did turn up, I was genuinely like, this is like so often with a Marvel movie or something like this, you'll think about the things you would want to be in the movie, and they're never in the movie because they always seem too impossible to be in the movie. Yeah. They actually did the thing that you like. This time they do the thing that you want, and immediately it's great. He steps back into the role perfectly. There's a really funny bit where she's throwing bread at him because she, obviously she's like, I don't know who you are. Who are you? Why are you suddenly in this room with me? What's going on? And he climbs up on the ceiling and gets a cobweb down for the grandma and stuff. And you're like, well, okay. That's pretty exciting. I'm pretty excited. Yeah. And they're like, right, let's try and find Peter again. And you're like, no, surely they're not going to, no. And then
no. No.
And then another portal opens up, and who saunters onto the screen? Toby Maguire, dressed as they accurately describe as a youth pastor, in just like this, this really sort of generic sort of clothes. And him and Andrew Garfield immediately start firing webs at each other, which is pretty great. And then, I'm emotional about it.
Oh, I can see some tears.
Yeah, I'm getting all emotional about the bloody Spider-Man, bloody Spider-Man, all Spider-Man movies. Yeah, they start throwing webs at each other, and you're just like, this is every Christmas day I've ever had at the same time. God, it's so good. So right, so they have this conversation with Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, and it's great. It's just the best thing ever. And you're like, this, could anything ever be better than this? No. So they go to
no.
They find Peter. He's all sad and upset. He gets comforted by Mary Jane. He gets comforted by Ned, and then like, we've got some people that want to meet you. Suddenly you got 3 Peter Parkers all talking to each other, having this conversation. Pretty great stuff. They're talking about the fact that they've all lost an Aunt May or an Uncle Ben or somebody. Yeah. Andrew Garfield opens up about how he lost Gwen Stacy, and it made him go really dark, and it makes me really want a movie where like Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker is just like murdering people or something. Like, it makes it sound like he went really, really bad.
Yeah, it sounds really dark. Like, oh no.
Yeah, and whereas Tobey Maguire's just like, oh yeah, Tobey Maguire basically, he doesn't say it, but you kind of get the impression it's like, no, I married Mary Jane and we have a happy life together, and occasionally I do a little bit of crime fighting and everything's pretty much fine. I kind of found my way and everything's good. And it's that idea of like, you work through the darkness and eventually you find the light and stuff, and they're trying to help this young Peter Parker from not going into that dark place that maybe Andrew Garfield's character went to after he lost Gwen Stacy and stuff. And it's pretty good. And they decide that, they agree that they're going to try and help these villains that all of them have sort of killed at various points. And we get this great scene, maybe the best scene in the movie, where they're in the high school science lab and they're making these cures for these various different villains, and you just get these great little conversations between them where, like, for example, Ned is like, goes and asks Toby Maguire, did you ever have a best friend? And immediately in your head you're like, yes you did, it was James Franco, he was Harry Osborn. And then Toby Maguire's like, oh yeah I did, and he went mad and tried to kill me and it was horrible. And you see Ned just look terrified, and then he goes up to Tom Holland, he's like, I promise I'll never go crazy and try and murder you. And it's just great fun little bits like that.
Yeah.
And probably my favourite bit in the sequence is where, first of all, this is the bit where they ask Toby Maguire if he's going to wear the suit, and he pulls his thing down and he has the suit on underneath. And I was like, in my head, I was like, yes. And then there's the bit where they're like, oh, what does he do? Toby Maguire, like, yeah. They're like, oh, Ned comes up to Tom Holland, is like, here's your web canisters, Peter. And Toby Maguire's like, what are they? Why have you? And he's like, oh, web canisters from my web fluid. And Toby Maguire's like, why? What? And they're like, well, do you not have? And then he just shoots the web out of his wrist because that version of Peter Parker's got gross bioorganic web fluid stuff that just comes out of his arms. And then the other two Peter Parkers are just completely disgusted by it. And it's such a great moment because, like, my brother actually said to me like a month before the movie came out, he was like, so is there going to be a scene in this where, like, Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland question why Toby Maguire has disgusting web shooters coming out of his arms? And I was like, funny joke. And then absolutely, that's in the movie. That's in the movie. They do that in the movie. And it's pretty fun. And then they make all of these things, and we get into the sort of final act of the film, which is set on top of the Statue of Liberty. Tom Holland's Peter Parker phones up J. Jonah Jameson and makes him, announce on air where he is. And they've got a plan to try and cure all of these villains at once.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, maybe they were like, guys, there's only 20 minutes left in this movie, we've got to wrap this up. Because they could have gone and hunted down each one individually.
Oh, yeah. but it would have been like a really long film.
Yeah, so instead they're like, all of them come to us now. All of you come to us now. It doesn't matter that we might be overwhelmed by like 5 super-powered villains.
Yeah.
So, initially, Lizard, Sandman, and Electro all turn up, and they're fighting them, and they're not very good at fighting them. And before they turn up, there's a few really good scenes. Particularly, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire have a scene where they crack each other's back, which is great. Yeah. And there's a scene where Andrew Garfield is like, who are the coolest people you've ever fought? And Tobey Maguire's like, oh, I fought a black goo alien thing from space. And then Tom Holland is like, I fought an alien in space. And Andrew Garfield's like, oh, I just fought a sort of a rhino guy, like a guy in a rhino robot. I'm rubbish. I'm a rubbish Spider-Man. And then Tobey Maguire's like, no, you're amazing. And it's like, oh, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a really good banter between them.
Yeah, they really did it so well. And again, it's just so good that those two people are in the movie, like they're in the movie fully. They're not like cameos. They are fully stars of this movie.
Because I was worried after I saw Andrew Garfield that we wouldn't be able to see him again. But
yeah, definitely no, but he's fully there. So then the villains turn up, they start fighting them, and they start getting completely destroyed. And again, there's a great scene where they regroup and they're like, I've never fought in a team before. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know what to do. And Tom Holland's like, oh, guys, it's fine. I've fought in a team before. I was in the Avengers. And they're like, oh, that's awesome. Is that a band or something?
Is that a band?
He's like, Tom Holland is like, no, what? No, the Avengers, because obviously where they come from, there's just Spider-Man. There's no one else.
Yeah.
Which again is pretty exciting. So they realise, they talk about their battle plan. They talk about how they're going to work together as a team, and then you've got a huge fan service moment where the 3 of them all swing around the statue together and pose on the top of the statue in the various ways that their Spider-Mans swing and pose, and it's great. And everyone cheered in the cinema again. Loved it so much. So. They managed to sort of, what do they incapacitate Lizard, they incapacitate they incapacitate Sandman. There's a great bit where Lizard, because the idea is they've got the cube on top of the Statue of Liberty, which is what's drawn them there, and then Ned and MJ are going to go back through a portal into the science lab and hide in the science lab. but they aren't able to close the portal. So the lizard chases them through into the science lab, and then there's a scene where Spider-Man runs through and fights the lizard in the science lab, which you won't know this, Alex, but that is a reference to a scene in the Amazing Spider-Man movie where Spider-Man and the lizard have a fight in the science lab. So pretty cool moment that I appreciated. So, and then eventually they get back, and they've basically, I can't remember the exact order they do it in, but I think they take down Lizard and Sandman. They take down Sandman first, then the Lizard, and then they're trying to take down Electro, and they're all just getting blasted back by him over and over again. And finally we get the return of Dr. Octopus, who pretends that he's a bad guy again, and he's going to help Electro, and instead he grabs the battery, the arc reactor, Tony Stark's arc reactor actually, off of Electro's chest, and plugs in this thing that depowers him. So they've dealt with Electro. Dr. Octopus has already been dealt with, so the day is basically saved. Doctor Strange comes back as well at this point, and is about to solve all of the problems. Except we've forgotten about somebody. We've forgotten about the Goblin.
Oh, the Goblin.
So the Goblin turns up, chucks a bomb into the box thing that's going to break the spell. Destroys the spell. All of the dimensions start opening up. You've got all these purple things cracking the sky. You see all these silhouettes of characters, and like I think there's a lot of Easter eggs in this bit that people will pick up on more as the movie becomes available, like for home viewing and stuff. I definitely saw a silhouette of what looked like the Rhino from the comic books in his like flesh spandexy suit thing, rather than the weird robot mech suit they did for the Andrew Garfield Rhino, which is cool. And at this point, it all gets fairly chaotic, but what is going to happen here is that they're supposed to cure the Green Goblin. The Green Goblin chucks Michelle Jones, MJ, off the top of the Statue of Liberty. She's falling down. Peter jumps to grab her. We've all seen this happen before. Peter's going to rescue her, and then the Green Goblin smashes Peter out of the way onto his glider and flies off with him. So Andrew Garfield jumps down and saves MJ, and again, an emotional moment, because Andrew Garfield acts the hell out of that moment of Peter Parker being like, I managed to save somebody as they were falling to their death, at least, even if it wasn't my Gwen Stacy, which is a cool bit. Then you just see Peter's clinging onto the Goblin's glider and is just ripping stuff out the bottom of it, blows up the glider. Both of them end up, because there's a whole thing in this movie that's not really discussed much, where they're replacing the Statue of Liberty's book that she's holding with the giant Captain America shield, which is goofy, but it's fine. And the shield at this point has fallen down and is on its back, and they have this fight on top of the shield. And again, there's these great bits where they're just doing wrestling moves on each other, like flipping each other over and smashing each other into the floor. Eventually, Spider-Man gains the upper hand and grabs the Goblin's glider and is going to stab the Goblin and kill him. Toby Maguire jumps in the way and stops him and is like, this isn't you don't want to do this. The Green Goblin stabs Toby Maguire in the back, and I was like, no. and then eventually, I think at this point, Andrew Garfield throws the cure to Tom Holland, who stabs it into Norman Osborn, who is then cured finally. And Tobey Maguire, luckily, is fine. He's just like, I get stabbed all the time. It's fine. I'll be fine. And then Tom Holland has to go up and talk to Doctor Strange about like the fact that the universe is about to implode and everything's going to go horribly badly wrong. So the solution they come up with is that Doctor Strange is going to alter the spell so that everyone forgets who Peter Parker is. Peter Parker basically is going to be wiped from existence. Not just who Spider-Man is, but who Peter Parker is. Everyone forgets him, which is horrible. Yeah. So they decide that's what they're going to do. So
that bit was like so sad. I was like, no!
Yeah.
There must be another way!
No, there's no other way. So
no other way.
There's some quick goodbyes. There's an emotional goodbye between all the Peter Parkers. Then he goes and has a very emotional goodbye with Ned and MJ.
Well, when they say goodbye, the Peter Parkers, like, they're so emotional. They're so, like, that is so real, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like real love.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then he says goodbye to MJ and they declare how much they love each other, and he says he tells her what's going to happen, and he says he's going to come and find her and make sure that she, he'll make her remember. And they share a kiss, and it's very sad and upsetting, and And then the spell is cast. Everyone forgets that it's Peter Parker, and we then have a final couple of minutes where he turns up at the cafe that MJ works at, with the intention of reading this letter to her that he's written to try and explain who he is, who she is, and he gets in there and sees that Ned and MJ are still friends. They're all excited about going to MIT, and he sort of makes this mature decision that maybe he doesn't want to bring her back into that world again and have her exposed to all of that again, which I'm sure at some point will be changed, because unless Zendaya decides that she doesn't want to play that character anymore, I can't see them agreeing to not have, I'm sure they will still want Zendaya in these movies in the future. So he decides for now to leave her and let her live her life and go to MIT, etc., which is very sad. And we have this final scene where he is on his own. Oh, there's a scene where he goes to Aunt May's grave, which is upsetting and sad, and Happy Hogan's there. And
Happy's there, yeah.
Yeah, Happy's like, how did you know Aunt May? And he's like, oh, through Spider-Man. And Happy's like, oh, me too, through Spider-Man. And they don't even know each other, and it's sad because kind of Happy's always been there with Peter throughout the movies, pretending not to like him, but obviously being a bit of a, if not a father figure, an uncle figure at least.
Yeah.
And then we see him. He's got a book of like how to graduate from college, how to do a high school graduation, because obviously he's not going to be registered at his school anymore, so he's going to have to get his high school diploma another way. And he's in an apartment on his own, and he's kind of in New York finally. So finally we've got, this movie ends with him on his own, as no one knows he's Spider-Man, as it should be, living in an apartment in the middle of New York finally, not on the outskirts, but in the centre of New York. And he's made a new suit, and it looks to be the most comics accurate suit that I've seen on a live action Spider-Man. It's very blue and very red. And the film ends with him swinging through New York, ready to be Spider-Man. And it's sort of, after 3 movies, they've finally got to a point where their version of Spider-Man is kind of accurate to what Spider-Man should be. Nobody knows who he is. Nobody knows what he's doing. He's just there to kind of help people and be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And it's great. I love the way this film ends. I love that they do that. I love that they bring him to that point, and I really hope that doesn't end up being the end of this universe's version of Spider-Man. It's really, really good. So what do you think?
Oh, I loved it. I thought, I think because of like Spider-Man not being part of the Marvel universe and being kind of owned by Sony at the beginning and not being really part of it, just put them kind of put Spider-Man at a side, like it wasn't. Yeah,
like his first appearance is in Captain America: Civil War, so he turns up in Captain America 3 as that's the first time you see him.
Yeah, and so you this kind of gave more credit to the other Spider-Mans, brought them in together, gave credit to, Toby Maguire and Andrew Garfield as great Spider-Men. Spider-Mans or Spider-Men, whatever.
Spider-Mans.
I think this film is amazing. The fact that it kind of opened the universe, it made the universe bigger and more exciting, I think. I really loved what they've done with it. Yeah. And the fact that there's parallel universes and there's different Spider-Man and there's different people doing similar things. I absolutely loved it, and it rekindled. It made me like Spider-Man.
Yeah,
more.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I adored this movie. I mean, I love Spider-Man, and this is, for me, I don't know if it's the best Spider-Man movie, because you have to see, like, it relies on so much. Like, if somebody had never seen a Spider-Man movie before and they said, I'm only going to watch one, I'd tell them to watch Spider-Man 2, the original Dr. Octopus one. But, like, this is, for me, probably my favourite. I just love it. I really, really loved it. I had high expectations and high hopes that I would like it. And the past 2 Tom Holland Spider-Man movies I've enjoyed. They've been good. I've liked them, but, not as much as the Toby Maguire ones or maybe even the Andrew Garfield ones. This one is amazing. It's so good. Yeah. I love it. There's, you can find bad reviews out there. You can find negative reviews out there. There are definitely people that didn't like it, but And I can kind of appreciate, if you might find it overstuffed, you might find it too long, etc. But no, for me, it was everything I would have wanted it to be, and I just really loved it. And it sets up a great future. I mean, here's my dream for the next Spider-Man movie. I don't think it'll happen, because I think they'll always fall prey to having to be more ambitious and bigger with a Spider-Man movie than really Spider-Man should be. They need to do like a friendly neighbourhood Spider-Man film. So here's my dream, right? The Hawkeye TV show's just brought back Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin, one of the best villains they've ever had. Yeah?
Yeah.
This movie reintroduces Charlie Cox as Daredevil. Yeah?
Yeah.
Spider-Man and Daredevil have often teamed up. They are a classic combination in the comic books, right? I want the next Spider-Man movie to be Spider-Man and Daredevil in Hell's Kitchen taking on the Kingpin as like a low-level crime boss. That's what I want.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know if we'll get that. They've set all the pieces in motion for that. They might have other plans in store for what they want to do with those different pieces. But Spider-Man and Daredevil working together to take on the Kingpin for me would be at the top of my list of potential Spider-Man movies. I would love to see that. So here's hoping.
Yeah.
What do you think?
The Marvel Universe is incredible, isn't it? It's just, now that like the original universe people have gone, you would have assumed that it would fizzle out or it wouldn't be, but it's getting better and better.
Yeah, because they've lost Chris Evans, they've lost Robert Downey Jr., like those characters have sort of been put on the back shelf for a while.
But they've Scarlett Johansson.
Yep. They're finding ways to keep it interesting, keep it exciting.
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant.
Yeah,
we've still got Benedict Cumberbatch is still hanging around. Paul Rudd is still hanging around. Chris Hemsworth is still there for now. So we've still got some stuff going on. But the new elements they're bringing in for me so far are all working.
Yeah. Definitely.
So I've not got much trivia for this one, because you can go online and read a load of trivia. We've been talking a lot, but I think one interesting point is that originally their plan was not to have any of the returning villains in the marketing or trailers for the film. So they sort of kept Toby Maguire and Andrew Garfield a secret for the entire thing, but they wanted to keep Willem Dafoe and Alfred Molina a secret as well.
It would have been amazing.
But eventually, Alfred Molina, who doesn't really care about all of this stuff in terms of like spoilers and things, I think he was told not to leave his hotel in Atlanta where they were filming it without like a bag over his head, basically. And he did, and was like photographed in public, and it was like, here's Alfred Molina near the set of the new Spider-Man movie. Dr. Octopus is coming back. So they sort of decided they were going to... I think they decided if they admit to that, they can then keep the Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield stuff more of a secret by just being like focusing on the villains. But it makes me think, like, if you didn't have that in the trailers, what would the trailers be? Like, how would they have sold this film?
Spider-Man. That's it.
But like, who would they have said? Like, people always want to know who the villain is. People always want to know who the villain is. What would they have done? I wonder whether they'd have had it all be about Jamie Foxx and tried to make out that it was... Jamie Foxx was coming back to play just a different version of Electro in this world, and it was just that. Or they would have tried to set it up as like a Doctor Strange being the bad guy kind of film.
Yeah.
And a conflict between the two of them.
That the villain is Doctor Strange.
It would have been cool to go into this movie thinking you were watching Doctor Strange v Spider-Man and then getting instead what we got. But, it's fine.
Yeah, it's good.
It's fine. Good. The way it went is fine. So we're gonna finish today with a little look at the future of the MCU and have a little chat about what's coming up in the future, okay? So... First up, in terms of the future of Spider-Man, not much is known beyond the fact that Tom Holland has said he wants to sort of maybe stop making action movies, but has also said he's going to carry on playing Spider-Man if Marvel want. Amy Pascal, who is the big Sony side producer of Spider-Man, sort of that version of Kevin Feige, Amy Pascal has said we're going to continue working with Marvel and we're going to do another trilogy of Spider-Man movies in the MCU with Tom Holland. So unless something horrific happens, and I think that because after Far From Home... there was a news story that there wasn't going to be a No Way Home, that there wasn't going to be a third Spider-Man movie to Tom Holland, and the kind of relationship between Sony and Disney broke down. And it took a while before they confirmed, actually, what we've made. So, and I think after they made up, they're almost stronger now than they were before, and the partnership between Sony and Disney is maybe better than it was originally.
Yeah.
So I don't, and Kevin Feige, who's the big producer of all the MCU movies, has said... we don't want to leave the fans waiting in the same way. We want to make it clear what will happen next with Spider-Man sooner and not make people think that it's all going to sort of fall apart. So I think we're going to get more Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, which is great. What I'm also wondering is, are they going to bring in Miles Morales? Miles Morales being the kid from Into the Spider-Verse.
What, into the new...
Yeah, so are they going to do a live-action Miles Morales? the rumor at the moment, and I don't know how valid this is. I think it's just hearsay. Is that they're looking at doing that, and that Jaden Smith is who they're looking at to play Miles Morales.
Okay.
Which I'm not that excited about as an idea. I'd rather it be somebody I don't know rather than Jaden Smith, who has a lot of baggage of being who he is publicly.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? Because I'm pretty sure he's a very talented human.
I'm sure he's exceptionally talented, but he also says and does things in public that make me kind of go, what are you doing? I'm sure he would be great at it, but I'd almost rather be surprised by somebody new than have it be him. But we'll see. That seems like very early rumours, so we'll see what happens there. Other than that, coming up next in the Marvel world is sort of the first thing we're going to see, I think, is Morbius. Do you know who Morbius is?
Morbius. No.
Morbius is the living vampire. He's a Spider-Man villain.
Oh.
And Sony, outside of the MCU, have made a Morbius movie starring Jared Leto.
Oh. Is that the trailer you're going to show me now?
No. We're not even going to watch the trailer because I'm not interested in that movie. But the trailer for that film has got a drawing of Spider-Man on a wall at one point, looking similar to the Amazing Spider-Man 2 Spider-Man. Or Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, but also Michael Keaton is in the trailer as the character he played in the Spider-Man Homecoming movie. So there's a lot of questions about how that's going to be connected to the other films. It's weird, but I don't like Jared Leto, and I don't think the film looks any good. But I'm interested to see what exactly connections that film's going to have to other stuff. There's a big rumour at the moment that Andrew Garfield is going to come back for an Amazing Spider-Man 3. People are really... I don't know if that's a rumour because people really want it to happen or if there's genuinely discussions of it happening, but the kind of big theory is that potentially there could be an Amazing Spider-Man 3 where Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man fights Tom Hardy's Venom from those movies. And that Venom. it could be Venom. It could be revealed that the Tom Hardy Venom movies are actually set in the same world as the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies.
Oh, okay. It's getting a bit confusing now.
Yeah. It is.
I'll go with the flow.
In terms of the actual MCU, the stuff that we know and love that we kind of have more faith in terms of being quality, the next two things we're going to see are a TV show on Disney Plus called Moon Knight. Do you know who Moon Knight is?
No.
Good. And the sequel to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which was the trailer for that was the final post-credit sequence at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home. We didn't actually mention the mid-credit sequence of Spider-Man No Way Home, which has got Venom, Tom Hardy's Venom in it. I don't want to talk about it because it's stupid. But what we are going to do is a little bit of a MyTube where we're going to watch the Moon Knight trailer and the Doctor Strange trailer, and I'm particularly interested to know what you make of the Moon Knight trailer. So get yourself ready, and I will send you the links to those. Now, I think Moon Knight looks brilliant, but you tell me if it genuinely looks brilliant or if I just think that it's good because there's a Kid Cudi song on the trailer. Here you go.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go.
Oh, yes! What's his name?
Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac.
Have listened to his accent he's doing in this.
Between my waking life and dreams.
Hello, and welcome to
Oh, it doesn't matter if he's got a bad accent. Oscar Isaac is incredible.
Agreed.
Like, I don't think he's even bad. I think it's a good accent.
be very difficult.
What?
Yep.
Voice.
Ethan
Ethan
Hawke.
Hawke!
Yep.
Wow, it looks freaky. I want to watch it.
Yeah, man.
Embrace the chaos.
What is it? Is he a villain or is he a superhero?
So there's Moon Knight.
Wow, it looks amazing. When is it on?
It's out at the end of March, so we've got a couple of
Okay.
months to wait, but it's coming. Moon Knight is always sort of described as being Marvel's version of Batman because he's a very dark, tortured guy who operates in the nighttime as a sort of a vigilante and has a cape and stuff. But he's actually also kind of interesting on his own level. I've been reading some Moon Knight comics this week because I thought that trailer looked so cool. I wanted to kind of get an idea of the character. So he's a mercenary called Mark Spector who is killed in Egypt and lain at the feet of an Egyptian god called Khonshu, who is the protector of travellers at night. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The Egyptian god Khonshu brings him back to life and christens him as Moon Knight, his emissary in the world to protect travellers at night time for Khonshu. So that's kind of the origin.
Okay.
Off the back of that, Mark Spector develops two more personalities and has sort of what they call dissociative identity disorder. There's an idea within this story where he's Mark Spector, the mercenary. He's a taxi driver called Jake Lockley. He's a millionaire Bruce Wayne type whose name I don't remember, and he's Moon Knight. So there's actually four personalities.
Ooh, okay.
That's all
I
moving
think it's gonna
between.
be-
So the idea. So people are making fun of his accent in this trailer, but that's sort of one of his personalities potentially, and maybe that's why the accent sounds a little bit Dick Van Dyke-esque. People have been saying. I think
it
I
sounds
like
pretty
it.
good.
No,
Like-
I like it. I think it's it's silly, but it's
Isaac.
fun. In some of the more recent Moon Knight comics, there's been a lot of storylines around like whether there really is an Egyptian god called Khonshu, whether it's all in his head, whether he's just sort of crazy. Kind of thing, and there'll be scenes in the comic where he beats up somebody who looks like a big jackal, and then it will reveal it's actually just a guy that he's just attacked because he's mad. So it's a really interesting sort of character. He's not necessarily just a hero. He's not a villain. He's just sort of this tortured guy, but not quite in the same way that Batman is. But I can see why people make those comparisons. So. I think he's one of Marvel's lesser known characters, which is why he's starting off on a TV show, I think, instead of a film. But Oscar Isaac and Ethan Hawke, I think they've started pretty well there. I'm really looking forward to seeing that show. Interested now?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And they're bringing in Blade
And I
as well.
love Oscar Isaac, so I'll watch anything with him.
So, and it's quite exciting because they've got Mahershala Ali is coming into the MCU to play Blade. And there's, people are thinking, are they setting up some kind of dark team-up movie with like Moon Knight and Blade and maybe the Black Knight played by Kit Harington? So it's cool, it's interesting. I wonder where they're going.
I probably said it before, but what I love about cinema now and actors now, I think you can pretty much do anything and not become a typecast. Like be typecasted. For example, thinking about Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson, they did that Twilight, but now they're like thriving in other things.
Yeah.
Dakota Johnson and Jamie
Dornan.
Yeah, they've done 50 Shades of Grey, but now they're like doing everything, and they're incredible actors. Superheroes are not just for like, you're not just going to be a superhero. Scarlett Johansson is a superhero, but also she's in incredible. I love the fact that actors can be so versatile now, and
so
they're accepted.
Daniel Radcliffe
anything.
and Emma Watson are managing a similar thing as well, off the back of Harry Potter not being. Whereas if you go back to the 70s, you go back to something like the original Star Wars film, Mark Hamill always, back in the 70s and 80s, Mark Hamill really struggled to get out from under the spectre of being Luke Skywalker. Whereas today, he's good. Able to do stuff. Yeah, I think you're right. So that's the next TV show coming from. The next movie coming from them is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So let's finish today by having a little look at that, because I'm pretty excited. Are you excited?
Oh, yes.
Cool.
Yes, so excited. Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go. I'm looking forward to more Wong. I love Wong.
Yeah.
Is a concept about which we know frighteningly little.
Straight away, some crazy visuals. Sam Raimi directed this, by the way, who made the original Spider-Man movies. I'm really excited to see him back.
Oh, there's Wanda. Scarlet Witch.
We just had a very quick flash of a character called America Chavez as well, who's Miss America, who's a hero that they're introducing in this movie, who is sort of within the Doctor Strange world, which is cool.
Hi, Wanda.
I knew sooner or later you'd show up. I made mistakes, and people were hurt.
I'm not here to talk about Westview.
There's a funny meme of this scene where she says that to him, and then Doctor Strange just says, I don't have Disney Plus, so I don't know what he's talking about.
Multiverse.
Oh, look at it, it's crazy.
Oh, it looks amazing.
I'm sorry.
So there's an evil Doctor Strange.
Yes.
Got out of hand.
Which they sort of did in the What If cartoon series last year. They had an evil Doctor Strange. So I don't know if it's the same one or a different one, but yeah.
I'm very excited. It looks amazing. So good.
Do you think... It does look amazing. I'm really excited about it. Do you think that we're going to get any more shenanigans like we got in Spider-Man No Way Home in this film? Are there any secret cameos?
I don't know.
Because there's a rumour.
No, I don't want to know.
But it's not even...
I don't hear...
It's not even potentially true. It's not even like... I think people are just saying
the thing is, I was so surprised by No Way Home.
Okay.
Because I don't... I watched interviews after.
There are rumours...
Tell me the rumour.
Well, there are just rumours of all sorts of characters. Like, I won't say specifically, but if you think about the Marvel characters that Fox owned and Fox made lots of movies about that are now owned by Disney, there are rumours that they're going to maybe... Because it's the multiverse of madness, so are we just going to have a film where he's running around kind of crazy realities, or are we going to see some...
And it's going to be mad. It's just going to be mad.
Some other universes from other Marvel movies, from other franchises. Is he going to visit some of those? So it's that trailer.
When is it out?
It's out in I think it's out in April or March
this year.
Yeah, it's out soon. It's out relatively soon.
I'm so annoyed because I would love to see at least one film with you at the cinema in this century, but I don't think I'll be able to.
May the 6th. It's out on the 6th of May.
No, I can't. Yeah,
I can't wait. I think I'm really excited, but I'm really interested to find out whether that trailer is hiding a lot or whether it's showing us a lot.
But it is hiding a lot because you only see Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, and evil Wong, and then an evil. You don't really see much. You don't really know what happens.
You could have a perfectly exciting low not low, what's the word? Low, not very ambitious, but fairly exciting Doctor Strange sequel where he goes across a bunch of weird dimensions and fights an evil version of himself. That could be a movie. Is that going to be the movie?
Yeah.
Or is there going to be something more? They've hired Sam Raimi for this. Sam Raimi's a big director. He normally doesn't. If he makes a movie, it's a big movie. So I'm really excited to see what that film is. I can't wait. Yeah. So that's Spider-Man No Way Home and all of the sort of looking on Marvel as it goes.
And we recorded for as long as Spider-Man No Way Home. So
we did, didn't we?
Our episode
Sorry,
was
everyone.
as long as the film. I hope you enjoyed.
I hope you liked it. If you're still listening.
Yeah.
Please do find us on
if you're not sleeping.
All the social media channels. On Instagram, please come and find us on Instagram because we have artwork for the episodes by Alex, which is wonderful. And if you want to see my reviews of all of the MCU movies, I'll post all of my letterboxd reviews for those on Instagram as I go through the MCU. So please do find us on there. Send us any messages or lists or opinions or thoughts of your own. You can message us on Instagram. You can email us, culturebucketpodcast@gmail.com. All of those details are in the show notes for this, along with links to the trailers we've just discussed and links to everything we discussed in Culture Catch-Up at the start of the episode. Please join us next week for episode 60, halfway to the big 120. where we'll be discussing the latest Wes Anderson movie, The French Dispatch. Which is exciting. I'm
really excited.
Yeah. Me too. So join us for all of that. It's been a pleasure having you with us. I hope that you're having a nice time. Please do give us a like, give us a rating, give us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Spotify now.
Recommend us to your best friends, your family.
Recommend us to friends you only like a little bit, even. Recommend us to anyone.
Exactly.
Please get the word out there about us. We'd love more people to listen, and rate and review us on everywhere you can, including Spotify nowadays. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Love you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.